Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the General Policy Committee for October 9th. Glad to have you all with us this afternoon. We have lots to cover today and looking forward to it. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to second. Any questions? Remember, we don't have any lights here, so put your hand up if you have an issue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we have the approval of the minutes. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second to approve the minutes from September 25th General Policy Meeting as printed and distributed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously as well. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to our discussion items for the afternoon. 2025-813 Economic Development Incentive Program discussion with the recommendation that the General Policy Committee approve the Corridor Improvement and Economic Development Program and allocate $2 million in funding from the GCRA budget for the 8th and Waldo project to launch the program.
Very good. So hello to everybody back there. I should have done that before. It's I don't know if you all can hear me all the way in the back. Mostly joking, but we don't like to have meetings down here of this nature, but it really does separate us from everyone. But on days when we need to lay out maps and things, this is the best place to do that. So I appreciate everybody's patience as we work through this meeting today. All right, Mr. Smith. Or Madam Manager, did you want to intro this?
Mr. Mayor, Rick Smith is here from the GCRA to present this item. We have actually been discussing this item for several months. I think that it is an important component of the 8th and Waldo project. This takes the project off of that footprint and moves it back into the community on 8th Avenue to allow for some infrastructure to be put in place to attract some, private sector or partnerships with organizations that can hopefully bring that area more into revitalization than it currently is.
Very good.
And so with that, Mr. Smith.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, and Rick Smith, Director of GCRA. I'm here with my colleague, Shayla De Santana, who was the primary author of this program, which we are really excited and proud to present to you today. We think it's a model for other areas of East Gainesville and downtown to support commercial and retail activity, incentivize commercial development and job creation. I'll repeat the recommendation with a little bit of additional background. We are looking for the City Commission to approve the Corridor Improvement Program. We also are looking for a commission to approve allocation of $2 million from the 8th and Waldo budget to go towards this program. That $2 million represents what the total cost of the program would be if all of the properties eligible under it were to apply. And finally, authorizing the release of a notice of funding availability to property owners within the program area. The marketing is going to be narrowly targeted to just the business owners and the property owners. We're not going to do a major release. We think that would, we'd get a lot of ineligible property owners. We want to limit the, the reach of this marketing effort. It's going to be door-to-door mailing, that kind of thing. Yeah, the program promotes the physical improvement of the Northeast 8th Avenue and Northeast Waldo Road corridors through financial incentives that encourage aesthetic appeal of site improvements, building renovations, adaptive reuse of obsolete buildings, and major development of vacant and underutilized property. It represents a blend of incentives that we've used in CRA past as well as currently with GCRA. The major transformational aspect of it would kind of replicate development agreements of CRA YOR, where we were able to do private-public partnerships with major developers along University Avenue in downtown. I think that's been a successful way of getting large projects built. And we also have funding available for smaller scale property owners and businesses that may not be able to do several $1 million worth, but potentially a $250,000 renovation to a underutilized building along Northeast 8th Avenue could have really substantial impact in attracting new investment. To repeat some of the major program goals, adaptive reuse, there's a lot of underutilized and vacant buildings along the corridor there, east of Waldo Road, on 8th Avenue, that could really use an insertion of capital. We also look to enhance the aesthetics of the corridor. We're not always going to be able to get building renovations, but improvements to parking lots and vacant properties with fencing and lighting can go a long ways to improve the aesthetics. And finally, we're promoting local job creation by attracting new businesses through this program. The program offers 4 tiers of financing. There's the residential properties concentrated along the Northeast 8th Avenue corridor. They're interspersed with a lot of commercial buildings in the area. We felt it was wrong to exclude them from the program because they have as impactful, visually on the corridor as the commercial uses. So they'll be eligible for about up to $12,000 depending on size of the property. We also have business and community facility renovations. Community facility renovations, basically designed to catch institutional properties and churches that are along both Waldo Road and the corridor. We're aiming not just to focus on private sector commercial businesses, but to improve the entirety of the corridor through aesthetics. We have a site improvement grant that I just mentioned. And finally, we have the vacant property development incentive. There's probably 40 parcels that are currently vacant or underutilized, most notable of which is the Jones Edmond property at Northeast 8th Avenue. It's been, to my knowledge, vacant for over 2.5 years, probably longer than that. This hopefully can be an incentive program to bring potential buyers to the property for reuse. Let me describe how we drew the boundaries. Basically, to the east of Waldo Road, south of 8th Avenue, that area of Duval is essentially all residential. There's no commercial worth speaking of that you can connect visually to 8th and Waldo corridor. There's the area that's north of the 8th Avenue corridor also that's primarily residential. But we took the boundary from 3rd Avenue, Northeast 3rd Avenue, all the way up to the Takachali border with Walmart, and also extending it further east to the Cedar Grove neighborhood. The 8th Avenue corridor reflects properties that abut the corridor itself, because those are the most visually impactful. And then across Waldo Road on the west, we go from the VFW property, follow the zoning line around the MLK project area, follow commercial zoning 8th Avenue west, and then track it back to the corridor on Waldo Road and takes it down to Northeast 3rd Avenue. Northeast 3rd Avenue happens to be the border between the old East Side CRA and the old downtown CRA, so it kind of made sense to draw the boundary there. Further south you go, you get much more commercial towards University Avenue. We have a limited pot of money we're requesting, so we had to truncate the boundaries in a logical way. We think this is the best way to implement it. This map shows you just the range of uses that fall within our boundary. Some residential, probably less than 15 residential parcels. The rest of them a mix of industrial, commercial, institutional, and office. The funding structure for this was originally designed as a rolling application for the smaller tiers, the ones with funding caps, but we decided since this is the first round, And it's also, we have an uncertain funding amount, dependent upon what the commission acts upon, that all applications would be, accepted under a cycle with a deadline for receipt of applications. The staff would score those applications based on the rubric that I'm going to share with you shortly, and then we bring all of them to commission for approval and prioritization. Here's some examples of properties that would be eligible for the renovation grant and even the larger scale transformational grant because they're both vacant and underutilized. Our vacant property development incentive. As I mentioned, there are nearly 40 vacant or underutilized parcels in the program area. This funding would be made available through a competitive request for proposal process based on need. There's no cap, but it shall be based on minimum amount of funding needed to make the project viable, and that would be demonstrated through submittal of various information, the pro forma indicating what other sources of financing the project's relying on, the potential impact of the project on the community based on jobs, tax growth, taxable value, things like that that are important in offsetting the public contribution to the project and necessary to make the program sustainable. So under this program, new construction of commercial or mixed-use buildings are eligible uses, substantial renovation of existing vacant structures, site preparation, grading, infrastructure, water, sewer, and electrical, any kind of environmental testing and mitigation necessary. Those are big ticket items, and they could take advantage of this grant in order to facilitate the development of a particular site. The residential facade improvement program, as I mentioned, is basically focused on those 12 to 15 parcels along Northeast 8th Avenue. They would be eligible for up to $12,000, primarily focusing on facade-oriented improvements, windows, painting, roof repair if need be, porch repairs, fencing, any kind of enhancement that would improve the visual quality of the corridor. And this shows you the uses that funds could be used for, as I just mentioned. Some of the ineligible uses include interior improvements, routine maintenance, such as pressure washing or mowing. Work started before the grant's approved. That's an important thing. So we're going to be monitoring any applicants who submit. We'll go out there and take a pre-review photograph of the site, so we make sure that anything that they've done afterwards is approved by the grant. And work started, or improvements to the rear side facades not visible from the public right-of-way.
Good.
Yeah.
Question. So when we look at things like the roof repair on this, when visible from the street, like obviously, by the time roof repair is going to be an entire roof. So we're not talking about only doing the parts that are visible from the street or anything like that, right? If we get into something that's necessary to finish that job, even though it's slightly out of this, would that still qualify?
They'll have to modify the scope. If it's a simple replacement of shingles or rotted fascia boards or trestles or what have you, I think that would be eligible. You're right, a full-scale roof repair would eat up an entire budget and not necessarily have the visual impact that we're looking for.
But this would more be focused on just what you could see from the street. If you did need a full roof, we would either do a portion of it or you'd have to have matching funds.
That's correct. And that's a good point in terms of the matching fund. If you're a homesteaded property owner, you get the up to $12,000 without the need for a match. If you're not homesteaded or you're investor property, then you have to have a 50% match in order to be eligible for the grant.
That's all right, thanks.
The business and community facility renovation incentive is designed to help businesses and property owners modernize and improve existing commercial and community buildings within the program area. Eligible for grants up to $100,000, as I mentioned, institutional users, religious institutions, commercial office are all eligible for this award. Eligible uses of funds would include electrical, HVAC, mechanical and plumbing upgrades, structural stabilization, roof replacement, foundation repair, ADA improvements, something that's over and above what a aesthetic treatment would be, but is necessary to sustain and continue the economic life of the building. Site improvement grant would be available for properties throughout the corridor. Eligible uses would be lighting, fencing, resurfacing of parking lots, etc. That restates some of the uses I just mentioned. And then the application process, as I've alluded to prior, we're going to put out a notice of funding availability. We're going to have a series of workshops between the release of the notice and the deadline for application in order to make sure folks are certain of what they need to bring to the application. We're even entertaining videoing a workshop with the important tenets of the application. So someone who can't make one of our workshops would be available to watch the video so they can learn about the program better and make sure they submit a complete and competent application. Once the application period has elapsed, we'll review and score the applications based on the scoring rubric that is in the application package. It will be done by staff members in a sunshine setting with the meeting noticed. We're not going to be using a board as an intermediary administrative review board for what staff scores, but we will take it directly to City Commission after that scoring effort, where the Commission would be a de facto administrative review board where if an applicant challenges one of our scoring of the questions, they would be able to present evidence to you to remedy that. And it may change the priority of the application. This gives you some of the scoring and evaluation criteria, 5 or 6 rubrics: aesthetic, blight removal, co-compliance, local investment and financial character, project location, meaning is it in a highly visible location where reinvestment would be impactful to the corridors, site improvement specific applications, and residential specific rubric. This shows you the breakdown of those, how the rubric applies to the 4 funding tiers. And this would be the matrix for post-award compliance and monitoring. Depending on the dollar amount, there will be a grant agreement signed, and they will be bound by the tenets of the grant agreement and the grant approval. They will be required to submit monitoring reports every year during the term of that grant. It could be anywhere from 5 years to 15 years, depending on the dollar amount. And staff would conduct site visits to ensure the site is what it's supposed to be according to the grant agreement. So returning to the recommendation, we are recommending the Gainesville City Commission approves the corridor improvement and economic development incentive program, allocating $2 million of funding from the 8th and Waldo budget, and authorizing release of a notice of funding availability. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Pretty innovative, because basically what it leverages is the whole area to make that project far more comprehensive, so I like that. The $2 million, that I take it is coming from the 18.7. Originally, we were at the 18.7 million is what we had.
Right.
From various sources, so the 2 million is a piece.
2 million,
of it.
2 million of GCRA dollars, because the other component is Wild Spaces dollars at that 18.7. We currently have about 6.2 million ready to spend, if you will, and we have proposed in the next item a couple of $1 million more for shuffling forward. So we can have that conversation then. But there is funding from existing sources to make this project launch on post-October 1st, which is where we are right now.
Yeah, I know the figure can change slightly. I mean, there's several factors, but essentially we have already put that 18.7, and now we're trying to figure out the pieces. I'm sure that's the exercise that you're going to be leading us in. Were you looking for feedback on this story or things, or just us to approve? Or?
If we're ready for approval, we're asking for that. We certainly will take feedback. This is a kind of a rubric that I used in my former life, in my former job. Probably processed over 150 different grant applications using it. It was very objective, and I think it will work here as well.
Yeah, my only thought is, this is not the micromanagement of the rubric, is make sure that our improvements, and if this goes forward with grant funds, is you want more sustainable aesthetics as opposed to, hanging up something from
Exactly.
anything that allows your rubric to identify those things that are going to have long-term impact on your facades and your business and your vacancies would be clearly have to be defined, versus very temporary types of things like maybe putting in 4 shrubs or hanging something from a wall or something like that, so that we're getting the most bang and the most long-term bang for the buck.
My experience has been that landscaping is probably not the best use of funds because it requires a whole infrastructure to maintain it. So we've steered away from that.
That's precisely what I was alluding to the most, so thank you. That's just a comment to make sure that our criteria is very well defined, so it's least challengeable, should someone not like, wheels come up. So, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Buck, Commissioner Chestnut, thank you, Mr. Eckenwalker, the Commissioners.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your creativity here. I think that this will truly enhance the 8th and Waldo project, because we'll have everything done at once, and this will be very, very motivating. Now, did you say that there are 80 property owners, business owners in the area?
There's 92 properties and I think 67 separate property owners. I think I've got that number right? 61.
And what kind of creative measures do you plan to take in trying to engage or notify?
I think we're going to we're probably walk the blocks, do mail-outs regularly, both more detailed information-based mail-outs as well as cards. We'll do that pretty intensely, probably for the first 2 or 3, or first 6 weeks to 8 weeks after the launch of the program. After that, we're looking for a 3-month cycle. That gives people plenty of time to assemble contractors to do estimates on the work and scope the work out. Gives us time to reach out to the affected property owners and instruct them on how to fill out the application, what we're looking for, how they can best submit something that can be fundable.
Do you have a lot of absent landowners here?
61. We also will reach out to the business owners if they don't happen to be the property owner. So both parties will get notified. We certainly want to have a very equitable outreach, so everyone, even the smallest property owner and the smallest residential property owner, can take advantage of the program.
Well, thank you. I think this is excellent, and at the appropriate time, I'll be happy to put a motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Chestnut, Commissioner Eckenwalker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Smith, and to the GCRA staff for thinking in this way. I think it is responsible, and I can appreciate this being a District 1 in a community that's near and dear to me for a number of reasons that you would have thought about the corridor. I do want to ask this, and I think you kind of started to touch on it when you talked about the amount that you've allotted for this. Right now, your project is slotted to stop at 21st Street, is that what I heard?
Along 8th Avenue?
Go back to the
Yeah,
map.
okay. It's right at the Duval Elementary,
Right, that's what I thought.
yeah.
Now, I want to say this. When I think corridor, and when I think this corridor specifically, I think about that entire street. My concern right now is that you're missing a number of individuals, and I get it, you've allotted $2 million here. And you very clearly stated that the amount of properties that you're looking to address, you did so because you have $2 million. But I want to push here a little bit because I remember when GCRA many years came and brought the street lights that are right at the beginning of that northeast 8th Avenue section. And many of us who live in that area thought, oh wow, this is great. But the lights stopped at a certain point. And then it seemed like a very long time before attention or investment was paid into this area again. I don't want us to get caught up in that same problem here for a number of reasons. First of all, I think that the entire corridor has a need to be addressed for a long, long time. And so what I would say to my colleagues is if we can find a way to expand and just think about how we might do this or how we might ask staff to come back to us with the way to do it, I'm not interested in just stopping this at 21st Street. 8th Avenue has long needed improvements. And I think for us to touch this and leave it at a halfway point is not what we need to do. We don't need to do it for the goodness of the project, but we also don't need to do it because that's not what this community needs at this time. So I want to definitely think about that. I wonder if you all had considered street improvements in your conversations, because once again, 8th Avenue needs to be addressed, the street itself, in a number of different ways, the physical street, but then having lived there for a number of years, traffic calming is a major, major issue. 8th Avenue is used as a raceway at some points during the day. And a lot of individuals, including myself, are concerned about public safety. So I wonder if that is something that we can take a look at and include in this project at all. I see Brian coming forward.
Well, Mr. Sable.
Good afternoon, Brian Singleton, Special Advisor to City Manager. 8th Avenue, the streetscaping is part of the 8th and Waldo conceptual plan. We still need to come back to you and scope that out. We've also allocated $500,000 in the fiscal year 26 budget and this year's budget to start the planning and designing phase for 8th Avenue. As we look at our gas tax revenues, that's how we intend to fund the construction phase of that project. But we're looking at 8th Avenue from 9th Street all the way out to the high school.
Thank you very much, Brian. And traffic calming is included in that?
We haven't scoped it out completely, but yes, we would be looking at a complete streets concept, making sure that the target speeds are appropriate and that all the bike and ped facilities and the lighting are included in the scope.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to just add before I conclude with this portion of my comments that right now you're addressing some houses, you're addressing a lot of the churches, but also at the end of 8th Avenue, right at 25th, you have 2 churches that will be left out of this if this moves forward in its current iteration.
Okay.
So I just want us to think about this more in terms of what I consider to be a complete corridor, and right now this project does not do that.
I will say that we did evaluate the whole corridor, and there's the Duval Learning Center seemed to be a good stopping point if we were to focus mainly on commercial. And that was the intent of it, but I do appreciate your sentiments. We can take another look at it and what the costs might be to bring in those additional buildings for the next 4 blocks.
I'd like for you to come back with that, what the cost would be, please, because once again, it feels a little bit, and residents will feel a little bit like they're being left behind, and that's not what we want.
There's always a boundary, I'm afraid, but
For sure.
I understand the sentiment.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duckamore. Mr. Eastman.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for coming forward with this. I really like the GCRA focusing on these sort of small-scale public-private partnership. It's a lot of work to partner with each one of these folks, get them through the process, but I think it's really effective. It reminds me a lot of kind of what we did on South Main. If I remember right, at first we did Depot Park and we did a road diet there, but then we also had facade grants, right along South Main during that same.
That was a bit before my time, but I think you're right on that.
That is what I remember, is that this is innovative and looking forward, but also we have a good success story of how you pair facade grants with kind of large-scale, infrastructure and new investments within an area. So along with Clarence R. Kelly, which you put in there, what did that open, 2020 or so?
24.
24, yeah, so well after that, yeah. So I think with that, there's, I think it's a very, I think this is very good. I will say, well, my question is how does this compare to our existing business facade grants and our residential grants that we put out there?
It kind of mirrors the big grant, business improvement grant.
Right.
We're using that model. What makes it different are the residential facade components. We had a paint program back about 2 years ago. We sunsetted it, put all of the future allocated funding into the downtown reallocation back in 2024. It's something that we did reluctantly, but we had to kind of concentrate our attention on the 4 or 5 big projects that would make the most impact. We would like to start getting back into the neighborhoods and combining economic development and community development efforts. I mean, I think they're part of the same argument, and they're two sides of a coin. We have to kind of prioritize where we are now in terms of funding.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you that commercial funding, because that's public space, because those are third spaces, those are places people go, like the grocery store that's there, things like that. But I like seeing prioritization of that commercial funding. While residential is important, it's also, that is a private space that people are privately using as opposed to, like an open commercial space. And you mentioned this, the discussion between having, cycles that come in versus, rolling.
Right.
How much do you foresee putting out in the first cycle of this?
I think we're going to leave it all open, available for the immediate cycle, and see what we get.
Okay.
Whatever's left, we'll, take a step back, reevaluate, get input from stakeholders and the commissioners on improving the product. But if we were to go through $2 million and get that much investment in the neighborhood in conjunction with the development of 8th and Waldo, I think we'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. I do like the idea of iterating on these sort of things, right? You put it out there, you see what works, you have X amount of money, you see if there was some way that you could reallocate a little more over here, a little more over there, and then you go out for a second bite at the apple, once you've learned from the first time around. But I'm comfortable with that. But I think I like seeing the GCRA do this sort of thing. If the idea is economic development, cleaning up areas that, could really use the investment, I think the small scale, iterative investment is the right direction to go in. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman. Mr. Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Smith, I had a similar question about how it compared to our previous program. So, for the I was thinking the business improvement because I think, was that 100,000 or?
It goes up to 150 if you're a
150.
historic building.
Right, so that's somewhat similar. We have some recent experience.
Right.
And then the paint, do you remember how much the dollar amount was for paint? I'm trying to compare that to this residential facade.
It turned out to about $6,700 on average per
Okay.
house.
All right. I just want to kind of think about what we've done in the past, and thank you for mentioning that we had kind of reluctantly, I think there was a bit of reluctance, but we kind of concentrated funds downtown, and this is another opportunity. I like the idea of concentrating some of this on corridors as opposed to, sometimes when the effect is completely spread out, it may not have that kind of transforming a corridor and how people feel and think, and as opposed to if you can drive down 1 or 2 streets, investors, realtors, people who see it, people who want to move to the neighborhood or start businesses or build housing. So I think that's a good idea. And so I want to understand the difference between like vacant versus, I know there's a property on Waldo, the Brown property that started 5 years ago. I think they have permits pulled right now. I don't know,
Yeah.
haven't driven by recently. So like, does that count as a vacant building, or is that, because it was never completed, is that a vacant, or does that fit into, I don't, how does that fit?
I think, we had in mind the smattering of buildings along 8th Avenue that are, quite frankly obsolete and in need of adaptive reuse. The Jones Edmond property. I know the property you're talking about. I don't know how far along they are in the permitting process, or have they put in HVAC and plumbing, or?
The permit says commercial building in
Yeah.
February. I didn't go ask ahead of time, sorry. I haven't driven by recently, so.
And we'll investigate that. I mean, that'll be a judgment call on how far along they are. Does this grant help bring it to fruition?
Yeah, because it's something that, for 5 years has been a bit of a, a incomplete part of the corridor. And so then I think I got my answer. You answered my question eventually about how soon something could be sold. There are some parameters there. So the one about, I think it was commercial, it's not that if it's sold with it, it just has to continue the use.
Right.
So I just wonder about like a vacant property that someone gets money and immediately sells it. So that it has to be used at that point.
It has to be, if we're providing funding, it has to be in use, commercial use, if that is what the grant funding was for whatever period of time based on the amount of funds. We require a filing of a lien with the title, or with the property collector, so that any title search would show a lien on the property and the requirements that it has to be maintained in commercial use or residential use, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and for the residential, I like that it's only a 2-year, for that same issue of properties then getting held up.
Yeah.
When they need to change hands and get inherited. So 2 years is much shorter than, some long 8 or 10 years. I like that. And then on 8th, I really appreciate the idea, because it's already, some cities would call this traditional neighborhood mixed, as seen by the map. There's lots of different colors.
Yep.
And that's kind of an old school development habit. I don't know if it was a model, but a habit. And so that, I think it's important to include the residential because they're there on 8th Avenue. And if you just do the commercial and not the residential, but to Commissioner Easton's point, the focusing on the commercial in these 2 corridors, it seems to make sense. And it sounds like we have some street work coming in the future, so that this would be kind of a similar time. My concern is just the taking $2 million from 8th and Waldo. So I really have to know the plan for 8th and Waldo before I can support this, because I need to know that scope. This is great, and I think it hits a little more on what at least I was concerned about, maybe some others, about the 8th and Waldo. Is this going to be economic development, right? Is it just one great shining, beautiful thing, and with the private market, I have to do all the lifting around it, but this would be an example of some public dollars helping lift the area around it to have hopefully some, synergy. So I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Willens. Commissioner Arnold?
The northeast corner of that is the Walmart property, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm assuming that what we would be looking at on that property would be build-outs for smaller stores around it, or?
We weren't envisioning anything particularly with Walmart. I would think this is a small bore kind of program, but it served to provide logical termination of our boundary, which was based primarily on commercial zoning. I think to maybe cut it south to 12th Avenue maybe makes it a little less justifiable. I'm not expecting Walmart to come knocking on our door.
Well, and I guess to Commissioner Walker's point, if I could push out a little further on 8th and be less concerned with the Walmart property, I think that would probably be my preference. But willing to hear a little bit more about what's going on up there and see what opportunities might be available up there that make sense. So it seems like that's probably the most successful commercial thing going on in the area already. So if we're looking to really, when I think of 8th Avenue and kind of all these old little buildings that could really be spruced up and turned into something cool, I feel like you get more bang for your buck there than an existing commercial park to me.
I mean, we can redraw the boundary if it is the desire of the commission. It doesn't affect the program greatly. The boundary, 12th Avenue is pretty much a good dividing point. And Walmart occupies everything from 12th Avenue all the way up to Takachali. So we're not going to overlook any opportunities that are not Walmart north of 12th Avenue.
Good, Commissioner Engel?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So, thank you all for the input. Thank you very much to CRA staff for bringing this forward. A couple of months ago, I was talking to Rick in the hall and said, and talking to the manager and said, we got to do something with 8th Avenue. That this is, we all drive down 8th Avenue, we've been seeing the same result for decades. And if we don't invest, nobody else is going to invest. So what are we going to do about this? And they chuckled and said, well, we're getting on your calendar right now for a grant program that I think you're going to like. So they've been thinking about this, doing good work for a good long while, and lots of other folks have. I'm sure other commissioners have had the same thoughts on this, and to see it brought forward is really nice. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about being able to use a piece of 8th and Waldo for all of 8th and Waldo. And I still have concerns about how we get big things done on the other side of the street, but I think this is important. Important is the wrong word. Essential is more the phrase here. If we invest public dollars, private dollars will come along. I do want to keep the Walmart properties there because those out parcels are going to continue to be out parcels unless somebody's willing to share some investment on that. So I would like to keep that part of the boundary where it is. Now let's extend to 25th Street with the idea that, because that's going to be mostly residential, which is the lower end of the spin. So let's go ahead and extend it to 25th Street, and when it's gone, we'll come make, we'll talk about it again. We'll scratch and find ways to reinvest if this program is working. I mean, that's what you do. If it's working, you find ways to double down on what works. And if nobody's applying and winning on that end of the street, then we know that part of it didn't function as well, and we rethink. So I think it's possible to do both of those things. I would like to, on the commercial side, if somebody comes to us with big ideas that work, I would like to be able to accept those big ideas. So I want to keep the potential for large commercial projects available. So I want to do something today. I want to approve something so we can get this working as quickly as possible, because kicking it forward and talking about it, in a few weeks or a few months is just a longer time before something happens there. So I want I want us to do something today with this, as well as with the next item on the agenda. But, so I would be in favor of the boundary as we see it, except extending down 8th Avenue to 25th Street.
Or 26th Terrace.
Okay.
It's 26.
That's fine.
That would be down to the original Cedar Grove. All the way there?
What's that last street? I'm not looking at a map.
On the north side, there's Northeast 26th Terrace.
It is 26
It's
Terrace.
26 Terrace?
Yeah.
Whatever that last street is. So
So
that you get the entire corridor, and that those two churches that are at the end can also,
Carmel and, what's the other one?
it's right next to it, whatever. Antioch, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that, but I do want to think, I want to give the opportunity for people to think big on commercial investment. I don't want too low a cap on that. So let's keep that in mind as before we go to public comment, and when we come back to the commission for an eventual motion. And are you tracking that, manager and director?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Willetts and then Commissioner Book, and then we'll go back out to the public.
If we're extending it that far, I just want to make sure we also know that there's at least one application already in for new housing, senior housing, just past, right, basically where Northeast 26 Terrace is, on the south side. They're applying for some of our Connect Free funds, basically. So that's, I don't know, I think it was 90 units. So, and that's brand new housing on a vacant piece of property. So if we're going that far out, we may need to go all the way to the property, maybe potentially, depending on kind of legal opinion, to the edge of the Education Foundation property, just because, anyway, so that's, because if someone, if they don't get one of the grants they've applied for with us, and if $100,000 maybe, Rick, what portion for vacant residential, how much can someone get?
Maximum 12,000.
Okay, that's probably not enough to make there. I was thinking the $100,000. Anyways, it's something out there that we haven't, it's coming to us, I think, next week in our agenda packet, so, but that's probably a much bigger project and less so, and that would be considered residential, not commercial, even though
That's correct.
okay. So, I don't know, just something to kind of put in the mix there. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you, Commissioner, and who was next, Commissioner Engel, was that you, or Commissioner Book, I'm sorry.
Lloyd?
See, without the lights, it's hard.
I already spoke. I did want to extend the Northeast 8th Avenue corridor. I do understand that as we extend the boundaries, our ability to focus intensive leveraging also, may get diluted, but that's kind of a natural extension right there. And so that would make sense to me if a motion comes forward down the road. And I'd be happy to hear from the public and hold into it here some more things.
All right, anybody else before we go to the public? Okay. Anyone from the public signed up to speak?
We don't have anyone signed up yet, but
Mr. Jennings, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I'm biased like one of your colleagues that I live with. I'm glad to go down to 23rd, on the 25th, goes down to my street. I grew up on that street, learned how to ride a bike on that street, and I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm also interested in doing I have an opportunity with your partnership to look at some major development along Waldo Road near and around Walmart that I've had a chance to share with you, a couple of you about. Love to share with you more about that as we move forward. But I'm most excited about what you are about to do at 8th and Waldo. The conversation that the county had on Tuesday, further that conversation, the idea that you have the potential with your partners across the street, possibly with a partnership with the school board, depending on how that shakes out, to be about the most transformative project, maybe in the city of Gainesville's history. The idea, and if I have an opportunity to speak back to this conversation in the larger 8th and Waldo project, the idea that Citizens Field is the heart of Gainesville. If you grew up here, you spent a Thursday or Friday night there at some point, regardless of whether you lived in Alachua County, because your mom or your dad dropped you off. You had homecoming there. Some, I don't want to talk about anybody's business, but you may have had your first kiss there. You may have had an opportunity to engage in some form at that location. So this city is ripe for that. And one of the reasons I'm looking at being involved with some partners and doing something on Waldo Road is because of your significant investment that you are about on the cusp of making there. So the idea of 8th and Waldo, looking at what you all did with the Kelly Center is amazing, with the man who helped raise me. The idea of the churches that are there, the idea of Gardenia that's there, even the idea with Commissioner Duncan Walker's comment about going a little further. You've got Duval that kicks in as well there. So there are all kinds of opportunities that come with this opportunity. So those who are teed up will help to get the word out, to share that, but have some projects that are teed up and excited about this investment. Thank you to Rick for being kind and meet with me on multiple occasions, and city staff that I've met with a couple times on this, and commissioners that I've had a chance to share with, and look forward to sharing it with others going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Anyone else? Okay, back to the commission. Commissioner Chestnut, go ahead.
All right, I move that the Commission, 1, approve the Corridor Improvement and Economic Development Program, 2, allocate $2 million in funding from the RA budget for the 8th and Waldo project to launch the program. 3, extend the project to Northeast 26th Terrace.
Is there a
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Mayor, I'd like to say there's 38 parcels being added to the corridor. We don't know whether they're homesteaded, vacant, or whatever, but we will look into it, provide you a kind of a range of what the ask might be or the spend might be.
And those are all residential parcels?
They are.
But I just want to say,
Well, and churches,
yeah, what is most significant about adding those parcels, wasn't this the first housing, Cedar Grove down there that the city commission did some years ago, many years ago. So I think that is historic and significant.
Shayla has provided the details: 4 churches, 6 vacant properties, and 29 single-family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you all, I'm excited about this. This is,
Yeah.
this is, I dare say this is a historic
It is.
move forward, so thank you. So I hope the media got all of that. All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to 2025-491 Northeast 8th Avenue and Northeast Waldo Road with the recommendation that General Policy Committee hear an update and presentation on the proposed plans to revitalize the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. recreational complex and Citizens Field, evaluate funding options from GCRA Wild Spaces Public Places and HU and HUD Section 108, and provide direction regarding proposed reprioritization. Approve preparation of a solicitation for final design remediation, permitting, and construction services for site build-out. Return to commission with consultant team selection, scope, and fee to advance to the Phase 1 design to support the stadium infrastructure and provide direction on additional recreational elements to include in Phase 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So, just as a quick preface to this, I am reminded, and Mr. Jennings referenced the stadium, Citizens Field. If you're there when there's an event there, particularly at night, and you have been there before, and I wouldn't say it's glory days, but it's glorier days than today, it cries out for help. I would invite everyone, if you haven't been in a while, there's a game, the GHS homecoming game is tonight. I'll be there, join me. It's important to be part of what's going on there and to see, to feel the need of what is necessary on site. Because when you go to a game, you're not just at the stadium, but you will traverse some of the surrounding area. You will get a better feel for the necessity of it. And for anyone who either grew up in Gainesville or who has raised a child in Gainesville and been a part of what happens at Citizens Field, it is the place, maybe the only place, where people from across the county sit next to each other and cheer and do all the things that are good about sports and about community. There aren't many places where we all sit together, where people from different neighborhoods come together and sit outdoors and yell and scream for good reasons and feel the excellence and the agony of sports together in one place. I'm just reminded every time I go to a game there that it is the thing that brings us together. And it is, I've said many times how important this overall project is to me, all the component pieces of it, because there are many component pieces of it, not all of which we're going to be able to figure out today. But I do hope that we can come to an agreement that this is something that we're ready to take some action on and start really moving forward with it. So, all that said, I hope to see some of y'all at Citizens Field tonight. I'll pretend you were there even if you can't make it. So, Madam Manager, did you want to intro?
No, sir. Mr. Andrew's here. He has met with, I think, just about every commissioner, maybe twice. But hopefully the scenario that he has put together will help us to come closer to a footprint that we can fund and at least hire someone to move forward with plans on so we can move this project.
Absolutely, and there's lots of vision that goes with this, y'all. You gotta think bigger than what exists. You gotta see this thing, so, Mr. Persons.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commission. Andrew Persons, Chief Operating Officer. I am going to MC part of the discussion today and kind of give you a sense of a run-up show, and then share kind of what we're hoping to get out of today. This is, as you all know, a continuation of your discussions about the 8th and Waldo property from earlier this fall. Today you're going to hear a presentation from NV5, sort of recapping what we've heard to date, the discussion at the commission level, and then we have before you, and it's also in the backup, an exercise that we're going to help sort of facilitate some design work by showing the various recreational elements that we've talked about on the site. The intent from the exercise is not to make you all designers, it's to really kind of help focus the commission's discussion on what are the highest priority recreational elements that you all want to see moving forward. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of discussion, and a lot of, I think, very important debate over what the overall vision for the property is going to become. So we're going to have that exercise, and then we're going to have some, follow-up discussion. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Q&A. We've got both your design team here to help answer questions. We've got staff here to answer questions. And I think sort of moving into what we're hoping to get out of this, as the mayor alluded to, the first sort of component is we really want the commission to discuss and give direction to staff regarding the Citizens Field component. We've had a lot of discussion both at the commission level as well as at the manager level with the school board. And so what we're hoping today is for the commission to give some direction to the manager to begin the negotiations, discussion with the school board to bring back a potential agreement back to you for ratification.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I might just intervene for a minute. Dr. Patton is with us via Zoom. She is out of town today, but really wanted to make sure that you all knew how important the discussion is to her. So she is on our Zoom call, but the staff from the school board, they are here and prepared to speak if necessary.
Very good.
Yes, thank you. That also includes the infrastructure component to support the stadium. We've had some initial discussions with school board staff, and should the commission give direction to continue to move forward and to begin drafting a potential transfer purchase and sale agreement for the school board, we would continue to refine those discussions about the infrastructure sharing, as the school board had verbally discussed at the last meeting, if you recall. They're willing and able to cover the proportional share of the infrastructure costs to support the stadium development. The next component is we are looking for a commission direction to an authorization to prepare solicitation for the next phase of design. This would be the permit documents, as well as bringing on a construction manager for the recreational components and the infrastructure moving forward. So that's an RFP process. We want to get that started, and we encourage that to be broad, so we don't necessarily have to have every sort of design element tied down at this meeting, but we are looking for authorization to begin that solicitation process, because it is going to be a lengthy process as it's required to be. The next step is really kind of where the meat is really for you all to prioritize what recreational elements are the most important to the site and what you all want to see out there. Understanding where we are, as we've discussed, with available funding, potential funding, and we really kind of hope that the commission can find some consensus on the elements of construction that we can then move into design. There was a lot of discussion last time about, do we design the whole site to the scenario one, or and the commission asked us to bring back a potential kind of scaled down version that's more tied to available funding. We've done that. That's a sheet that you have with all the different priced out components of the property. Those are, for record, and I'm sure NV5 will talk about this, those are all-in costs, so construction, design, permitting, and contingency. And then finally, once the commission has determined what elements are most critical to the site, giving direction for us to then bring back a final project budget. There's a lot of discussion about budget and potential areas that either that are existing funding sources like CRA, wild spaces. There are just funding pieces that we've talked about, such as the HUD Section 108. And based on the commission priority of what elements, we would then come back to you with a proposed budget to meet the commission's priorities. And then finally, we did want to reserve some time during the discussion to just briefly give you an update as to where we are with discussions with the school board about the lease extension. The current lease extension ends in June 2026. The school board has been working to resolve some of the issues that I think we talked about last time with insurance, and then some facility improvements to the stadium, and so we want to make sure we don't forget to have that discussion with the commission.
And I just want to also add that the lease extension for the school board, the authority that's already built into it gives the manager the authority to extend it. But I want to make sure that prior to that, that there's discussion here to make sure that we're good.
Thank you. So unless there's any questions at this point, I'm going to turn it over to NV5 to run us through the presentation, and then we can come back and have some further discussion.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Donica Oliverio. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I'm Donica Oliverio with NV5, and we are really excited to be back here talking with you again about this project. This slideshow is a modified version of what we went over with you in June. It's shortened a bit so that we can focus a bit more on what we want to do today, and so that we can kind of prepare to do this fun workshop activity. Oh, and before I go forward, I've got Robert Walpole with me from NV5, and I've got Kathy and Donald from Monarch, our architects, if there are any questions related to those parts of the project. The project overview, as I'm sure you guys remember, I know that you know very well what our charge was from the beginning, was to take a look at this site and see how we could enhance the athletic facilities of the site while also maintaining its importance and its value as a community park. There was a lot of inspiration for the project, for thinking of it more in terms of its sports value, by looking, for example, at projects like the Birmingham Complex or Jonesville Park. This particular site is about 36 acres. The Birmingham site is over 100, and Jonesville Park is over 90 acres. So understanding the scale of this site at about 36 acres is very important to understanding what the site can support, as we're trying to figure out how it works best to enhance those athletic facilities and also maintain its value as a community park. And if you look at this slide, within the turquoise light blue boundary, you'll see that's the property line. And this base map that you have in front of you is a similar type of existing condition map. You'll see that at the bottom on your base map, and it's not shown on this slide, but at the bottom on your base map, you see a hatched area, and that's where fire station number 3 is going in. So none of the program elements that you have in your little envelope, this is where your proposed program elements will be, none of those can go in that southern area where the fire station number 3 is.
Okay,
Yes.
pause you there and ask, I don't know if we have this handy or not, but do we have a ballpark on what the plan, the spending plan is on the fire station?
I don't have that fire station number 3 information, but I think staff can provide that. Brian's coming up.
The original number for Fire Station 3 when we were at the Hetty site was in the $20 million range. We just finished the schematic design on this site, so we don't have that number fully baked, but it should be in that same ballpark.
So $50 million. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so we're going to be working on this in just a few minutes when I finish up the presentation, but I just wanted you to see that this slide right here shows us the 36 acres, which is the same thing on your base map, and the existing conditions right here. About 16 acres of the existing site is green space, and on our proposed scenario 1, which we showed you back in June, we are maintaining about 16 acres of green space on our proposed scenario 1 plan. That is this right here. You also have this within your workshop packet. Right now on this site, there are about 150 to 200 parking spaces. Most of those are around the MLK building. Some of them are also scattered around the GFR buildings down to the south. Some of those will also get demoed as part of the Fire Station number 3 project going in. And in this section, I just want to talk real briefly. Again, we went over a lot of this in June, but this is another opportunity to review it before we go into our workshop fund. I want to look just briefly at the existing conditions, things we knew about the facilities going in, and things that we learned when we got stakeholder and community feedback. All of that information. Is that it? All of that information.
Is that the feedback you were looking for?
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, am I making that sound? And so the community feedback and everything that we learned when we talked to stakeholders in the community, of course, just fed right into the program that we came up with, and that program is how we put together the site plan. So again, you've seen photos, you've been to the site. Here's a quick photo of a lot of the community meetings that we did over the course of a year. We started last November with our first community workshop, and we finished up with the most recent one back in May. This slide shows right down there at the bottom the 4 main elements of the site: the MLK Center, the Citizens Field Stadium, D.H. Hunter Pool, and the multipurpose fields. I'm going to go over MLK, the pool, and the fields. We can talk about the stadium as well, although I feel like that's the one that everyone knows the most. We can hit on some of those high points too. One thing I wanted to point out on this slide is that Northeast 14th Street divides the site. When we say that the site is about 36 acres, you lose about 2 acres for putting in Fire Station number 3. And if you count Northeast 14th Street and all of its associated right-of-way, that takes up about another 2 acres. So when we look at actual land space on the site, that's more like about 32 acres, if that makes sense. For the MLK Center, let me grab my notes here. A lot of things we knew going in had to do with, what you might know just from the surface, just walking around the site, that lighting upgrades are needed in the parking areas, that wayfinding and signage could be improved, that there was sort of a lack of cohesive branding between the buildings and maybe some disconnection between the way the complex was laid out. We also knew that the MLK building was very heavily used by the community, and that there was limited parking, especially when there are events. It makes it difficult for people to find a parking spot to get into the wellness center, so we knew that underparking was kind of also an issue. We also knew that ADA accessibility needed to be improved, and that the building is now hardened for use as a storm shelter. And when we got in and started talking with people more, the stakeholder and community feedback we got, one of the first meetings we went to, you can see that little graphic on the right-hand side of the slide, we asked which of these would have the biggest impact on the community. And you can see that the largest number of people chose the MLK Center because it is so heavily used, because it's that main space on the site where people go to. It's held so many events over the years, and it is used by so many different user groups on a daily basis. One of the things that we learned is that the meeting space, the existing spaces are either too small. For example, there's one little meeting room that's about 600 square feet, or there's the great big indoor court, and those are really the only two spaces you have to use for events, for meetings. And one's a little bit too small and one's a little bit too big. So there is a need for like a mid-sized AV-equipped meeting room, and as well, they really do have a need for a large senior and youth center programming space, event spaces for rentals, for and there is a small stage there, but again, it's sort of within the court. Having that combined over in meeting room space would be preferable. The Wellness Center is right now only about 800 square feet. Something that we learned is that it could be doubled in size and easily be filled with new members. Because the building is used for storm space, the Wellness Center has to be used for pets. So it's a pet shelter. So when people bring in their crates with their pets during a storm event, they have to take all of the equipment and move it over, all the heavy equipment, and move it over to the side of the room, make space for all the animal crates to come in, take all those back out again whenever it's used as a storm shelter. So that space is a bit small, and that is a challenge, in terms of maintenance. The indoor court space, we learned that if that were doubled in size, it could be immediately in use. And the users, pickleball, basketball, youth cheerleading, wrestling, volleyball, there is the possibility of hosting tournaments if there's more space. 2 games could be run at the same time if you had 2 indoor courts. Again, event hosting is limited. The court bleachers, we learned, were manual operation. They were labor intensive and needed some frequent maintenance there. HVAC units had caused some leaking on the roof, those kinds of things. So we got a lot of information from staff and from the public about how this building is used. And likewise, Citizens Field, I know you know a lot of the issues with this one already, so I feel like I shouldn't lean too heavily on this one. And we can go over it more in detail if needed. I'll skip ahead to the White Hunter Pool, if that's okay. At the pool, that was built in 1975. It is a 50-meter Olympic-sized pool, and I know we talked back in June about the difference between what a competition pool and a community pool is. Because it is 50 meters, because it's got that deep dive well, and because it's got the lanes to swim in, it's really designed more as a competition pool, although we never really used that term until we started working on the project. I know it was confusing for some people. It does have a little beach entry on one side, which is sort of a community pool element, but its overall design and size was really suited for swim teams and dive meets. So maintaining that is pretty important. When we got more information about it and its existing conditions, we learned that it's 50 years old, that it is, the main drain plumbing is the original cast iron from the 1970s. And even though there was a PVC liner that was put on about 9 years ago, even that is starting to show some signs of wear. So our understanding is that condition-wise, it's in aged condition and really is in need of replacement. The storage is inadequate from what we've heard. A lot of storage ends up getting put around the pool deck area, which limits the ability of spectators to use the space. And let me show you a little image of what that looks like. This little image shows where the storage is sort of filling in the space on the pool deck. So the pool deck might be of a good size, but because there's not enough storage elsewhere, it ends up getting taken up by sheds and individual storage areas. For dive meets, we've heard that there really is no space for spectators to sit. Parents sometimes have to go outside of the chain link fence to watch their kids because there isn't a good spot. They have to bring in seating. There isn't any shade. There's no shelter for inclement weather in that area. And with the office and locker rooms, one of the issues that we learned is that, well, if you've been there, you know that you have to sort of go through one locker room or the other. So there's no other way to get in. So if you're a dad bringing your daughter for a swim lesson, you have to walk through the men's locker room to get into the space. In addition, when you're holding a dive meet, there are some requirements that are ideally you're able to cordon off the locker room so that those athletes can only enter the locker room during the time that they're competing, so that the restrooms for audience and spectators would be separated. That doesn't exist. There isn't a way to separate those uses, and that can cause a conflict for people wanting to hold meets in that area. And let me see if I covered everything. It is the only local pool deep enough to be used for those high school dive meets from what we understand. And swim lessons, synchro, water polo, dive team, it's pretty heavily used. At the same time, there is a small splash pad there that probably doesn't get used enough because it's kind of tucked in, you know, behind the fenced area. It's difficult for community members to get into that space. It's kind of tied in with the pool so that even when people are running those meets and hosting other events, it's not as accessible for people. So that started to, as we learned those things, we started to think more about the possibility of doing, like has been done in other municipalities, separating the competition pool area from a community pool area so that there would be less of a conflict and access for everybody in the amount of time that they needed it. On the multi-purpose fields, what we knew going in was that there is no lighting, which limits the evening use and the safety of the area. We understood that because they weren't completely smooth, because there were some other issues with the surface, that that was challenging for people to use in terms of games. Ultimate Frisbee is played out there. I know the soccer Pop Warner groups are out there frequently. And we also knew that there were some environmental considerations. There was a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessment that was done back in 2021, and our office did a review of that. That area to the north, and you can see it's kind of a weird graphic right there, but if you look at the turquoise area, that's an area where it looks like there used to be an old trash dump. And the environmental assessments looked at, there were little test pits done, and those areas, those little marks show what all that is, and that's how you can kind of estimate the trash dump area. So what that means for us in terms of site engineering on the space is that in order to, you would either need to have at least 2 feet of clean soil on top of any of those areas, or you would need to excavate those areas out in the case of needing to do stormwater. So it's something that we knew up front would need to be dealt with as part of the site work. And when we talked to people about the multipurpose fields, it was another really important element of the site, heavily used for youth football, ultimate frisbee, soccer, and other community sports. Also serves as overflow parking during events. And one of the things we heard over and over again at the community workshops was please preserve the green space. And so that is why our site plan that you saw before, scenario 1, included an equivalent 16 acres of green space, because that is so important to the community. There is no lighting, like I said, out there, which limits that evening use and safety, and then the poor field conditions because the playing surfaces are uneven. Other user needs that came up as we talked about green space included walking trails, dog park, playground, and even looking at an event space that would be separate from the fields, so that again, those things could happen simultaneously if needed. And before I move on to the programming, are there any questions about that? Probably not news to anybody. Okay, great. We took all that information and we put it into this program. We looked at the facilities, the site amenities, and then some other additional considerations. And again, I know this is repeating what we talked about in June, but in brief, we looked at a new MLK center because when we started pricing out renovations, and it looked as if price-wise to get the doubled amount of space that we thought we might need, because again, our original charge was looking at that C.H. Johnson plan that proposed a 60,000 square foot MLK center. Knowing that we needed that amount of space, it looked as if it might end up being about the same cost to do a renovation, and why not replace the building and get exactly what you want. And in that case, we could do it as a 2-story building and thus conserve, some of that space by stacking, and getting a 2-story MLK. So when we put together our program, that's why we proposed a new MLK center. We also proposed a new pool support facility, again, because of the issues discussed previously about the one that's there now. And we looked at a replacement competition pool and a community pool in order to serve all of those user needs. At the time we presented to you in June, we were still kind of in the process of figuring out how the stadium was going to move forward in concert with the school board. And we knew that fire station number 3 was going to go on the site. For the site amenities, improving those multipurpose fields felt incredibly important. Adding in additional outdoor courts that we could, making sure there was a playground, some walking trails, and dog park areas. And then again, those additional considerations, making sure that there's enough parking, both a mix of paved and unpaved parking on the site, improving the lighting, signage, wayfinding, and site access. So if you remember what we brought to you in June, we had these two scenarios, and at that time, we moved forward with scenario 1. And scenario 1 is right here, again, listing those program elements that we ended up with. The MLK Center, 2-story, Citizens Field, 2 full-size multipurpose fields, 2 new outdoor basketball courts, aquatic support, the 2 pools, playground, event lawn. And you can see in this design, you know, it's a bit of a homage to Depot Park by having a little oval event space in there. It also allows us to keep a little more green and have a pathway around it that could be used for food trucks and some of those farmers market types of things that were desired. And in this scenario, we have about 600 parking spaces. We have about 250 parking spaces that are paved and about 350 that are grassed. And again, maintaining that green space. On this slide, and again, this is, I know, repetitious, but here's the 16 acres. Granted, part of that 16 acres, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, does include stormwater basins. And again, we know that the water table is high on this property. Fire station number 3 showed us, you know, with the geotech that was done for that project, that the seasonal high is about 3 feet down in one area of the site. So if the same conditions exist on the northern part of the site, we would be looking at needing enough space for wide, shallow stormwater basins. So the 16 acres would include those wide, shallow stormwater basins, which could also be used for passive recreation and even overflow parking if needed. On this slide, we're showing a couple more images of what those elements could look like around the event lawn area. On this, there it goes. Yep, all right. On this one, we're showing what those stormwater areas at open space would look like with a couple of images. And on this one, we are showing some images of food trucks, markets, etc., that could go in that space. And here we are looking again at the MLK Center, and this is a summary, like I said, showing that the existing 1-story MLK is about 19,000 square feet. Again, the wellness center is about 800, the meeting room and then the 1 kitchen area, less than 1,000, and not much office space. In our proposed version, we were looking at adding a lot more office space as well, with the potential for PRCA to have offices there, looking at having the senior center. Again, the senior center could have at least the same amount of square footage as the one on Northwest 34th Street embedded within this building, and additional multi-use spaces for events and rentals. And then the wellness center itself could be doubled from 800 to 1,500 or 1,600. And the aquatics building, the same competition size, 50-meter Olympic size pool. There's no need to make that any larger. It's suitable for the size that is needed now. It just needs to have pool deck space that works better, and the space that's needed for storage and for spectators, and a support facility building that actually meets their needs for locker rooms and restrooms. The bathhouse or aquatic center, whatever you want to call it, that building would be usable for both the community pool and the competition pool. We talked about this last time. Here was just a slide that described the difference between competition and community pools. And here are some of the case studies that we discussed, like the one in Haines City and the other one in Sarasota that showed examples of how those 2 pools are often used in other scenarios. This slide I left in here just because it is important to remember when we get to this discussion, when you pull your base maps out and start looking at those site elements, the elements of the stadium, however that plays out, whether there's a track or whether there's not a track, also affects how much space it takes up on the site. So it's something that we would have to think about going forward in terms of other design elements, knowing just how big that stadium footprint would need to be. And as before, there are a couple of case studies about other stadiums. Here's examples of other stadiums that do not have a track, and a couple of examples of ones that do have a track. Let me go back to that for a sec. This proposed site plan In the scenario one that we gave you before, Northeast 14th Street gets, the right-of-way gets vacated, and that extra sort of 2 acres of space from Northeast 14th Street kind of gets absorbed back into the site, and the circulation is handled by internal driveways, rather than having a road that just bisects the site completely. So this illustrates how that would work, and if you pull this out right here, if you look at your scenario one, you can see the MLK building right here, the outdoor courts adjacent to it. So for example, you could enter the site from here on Waldo Road, or you could enter the site from down here on 8th Avenue, and you can come up to this little traffic circle, and you can look right there on the slide and back to your site plan if that helps to make sense. You can see on the slide where the parking areas are, they're kind of a pinky salmon-y color. There would be a parking area right here next to the MLK, and then another area south of where we were showing the proposed aquatic facility and competition pool. So next up, just briefly, this is where we can talk a bit about the budget and the phasing. As part of your packet workshop info, you also have this sheet. These are little price tags, and what these price tags show includes construction costs, design, permitting, FFE, and CM fees, all kind of bundled into one. And staff asked us to do that. Typically, if you look at the presentation we did in June, we would separate those construction costs from the other soft costs, but for the sake of this exercise, staff asked us to combine those construction costs with the soft costs and kind of give a little bundled number so that you could more easily kind of see how those site elements combine. But what's up on the slide right there is exactly the same as the price tags that you're looking at on your handout.
Is that, I don't know,
I'm sorry, was there a question?
there was, but I answered.
Okay, okay. Yes.
I do have
Thank you. Yes, Andrew just reminded me of something. I'm sorry, was there a question?
I do have a few questions.
Okay.
So looking at if we were to go forward with this new MLK Center at that price, would it also be shelter hardened and
Yes.
proven for that?
Yes, we understood that that needed to exist, to still be hardened in its future iteration, yes.
One of the options on here, so we look at site work, where we go through, clean everything out, get the storm water down to level, pretty much re-level everything, grass, all that. So currently the fields, the multi-purpose fields are essentially that, right? They are just
Yes.
leveled ground with
You
grass.
know, yes.
Yeah, they're frisbee around all the time. I guess what I'm curious is, what is the difference between leveling that, sodding it, and then the multi-purpose fields up here that would be the full $1 million to put multi-purpose fields again?
My understanding, and I can see if Robert wants to back me up on this, my understanding is that those would include striping, lighting, being set up exactly as needed for that recreational purpose. I'm going to see if Robert has something to add to that, but yes, they would be laid out in such a way that they would meet requirements.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Robert Walpole, NV5. So yeah, the costs associated with the fields are, we're going to bring up the grade up and re-level them a little bit too. Having just been out there with the mayor the other day at a football game, they were used to park on for the football game.
Sure.
They get beat up. We also want to, some of the remediation costs are removal that we've talked about in these budgets. Other remediation costs are things that we can cap, so we need to bring the soil level up a little higher to get the separation that's required from the contaminant to actually where a
Sure.
human would come in contact with it. So there's grading, there's fill, there's grading, there's aspects of that. There actually would be some stormwater associated with these fields too, to get the water from the fields to the basins.
Sure, but we would have the remediation of the site work would be happening whether there was fields or not, correct?
Correct.
So when we look at the price tag for these fields, I assume like the leveling, the remediation, the site work that would be part of that would already be included with the $15 million for putting into remediation and site work.
Correct.
So what I guess my question was just like what the difference is between going in there, leveling it, doing the site work on it, bringing it up to where it needed to be, then another $4 million to turn them into multi-purpose fields.
Primarily lighting.
Okay.
Lighting's,
And then I guess
that's
that
the
would-
most expensive aspect
So
of the
it would-
project, by the
It would
way.
be $4 million, but mostly to light the fields.
About $1 million per field for lighting.
Well, it's just $2 million.
But that includes the soft costs as well.
That's all, so you remember soft costs, laser grading the fields, all the equipment you need, bringing in the extra fill, all those are in the $4 million per field.
All right. And I think, oh, and then when we look at our little maps here, the
Yes.
stormwater areas that are laid out, when we look at adding or subtracting things, does that stormwater need to stay where it is, or is that also adjustable?
Well, that's a very good question. I was gonna bring that up, so thank you. We are assuming that we might need around 7 acres of space for stormwater. Obviously, we won't know until we do geotech and see like what the soils are like. This is the lowest end of the site, at the northern side of the site. So we tend to want to keep the water, collecting in the place where it naturally collects on the site. So we do want to keep about that amount. It could kind of be spread a little bit elsewhere, but the majority of it would need to be at that northern end of the site because of the existing topography, because that's probably the best place to put it, and because we know they need to be wide and shallow, and that's where the largest amount of space is. And right now, we're just assuming that's going to be about 7 acres. There would need to be more research, done to be sure if that was the right number of acres to do.
All right, pretty good. Thank you. I think that's all my questions.
And there was one more thing that Andrew just reminded me. When you look at your packet, this little envelope of your site elements, which are the same site elements shown in scenario 1, one of the things you'll see in there that's extra is the senior center. The staff asked us to include a standalone senior center. So that one, the one that you see right here, has a little separate price tag on it. And that's if the senior center needed to be separated out. Now, as I mentioned, the senior center was sort of included in our original plan for the 2-story MLK. So if that senior center were separated out, that, this still wouldn't be 50,000. Does that make sense? Like that proposed MLK could be smaller, it could be entirely different. That's part of what we wanted to talk with you about today. But you'll see an extra element on there, which is that senior center, and that's why it's there, so that we can have that discussion. And we can go back to that slide, but for the purposes of moving forward on this workshop, what we would love for you to do, if you haven't had a chance to do it already, is take a look. There's 19 pieces inside your envelope. And each of these little laminated these laminated pieces correspond exactly to what you have right here on this handout. And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take a look at these site design prerequisites. Assume that you have to do that remediation cost, which is about $5 million. Include site work costs. Now those could vary with the addition or the deletion of program elements. So maybe your site work isn't as extensive as needed if you drop things entirely, like if you decided not to add a new pool or something like that, and maybe some of the site work drops off because of those types of things, or if you don't have any more parking. Set aside approximately 7 acres for stormwater, and include at least 600 parking spaces for the site. Again, those could be a mix of paved and grass. You have tiny little parking pieces in there that are broken up into little chunks. Like your largest chunk of parking is about 180 spaces, your smallest is about 40 spaces. So if you take out all 19 of those elements from your envelope and start to play around with the site, you can see where things fit and how they fit, how they don't fit. You want to preserve as many existing trees as possible. That obviously maintains the shade, reduces your tree mitigation costs, and you want to keep in mind to use all 3 of the entry points to the site for vehicular and pedestrian circulation. You can vacate Northeast 14th Street if you want to, like we did in our site design, but this is, we are hoping that by putting this together that it gives you a chance to really see the scale of the site, how the elements fit on there, because again, we're charged with looking at how to improve those athletic facilities, make it as tournament ready as it possibly can be, given the scale of the site, and also make it keep and maintain that value that is really needed and so important to this part of Gainesville for both the immediate neighborhood and the entire city. So that is the mission, and we're hoping that giving you a chance to look at these elements and see how they fit on the site would help with wrapping your heads around that. And it is a challenging but important park.
So, Don, I'll ask if you will come over here and help us
Yes. Absolutely.
as we do
I get
that.
to walk around
And
my
this is,
computer.
I know this is not what we would normally do, but anybody watching at home, kind of bear with us as we're very informal with
This
this.
is like an intermission.
Right, there's no other way for us to do this than this way, so.
And Mr. Mayor, I think while we're doing this, if the commission has sort of questions or wants to have discussion, like we're happy to field the questions as we're going.
So.
You want us to freelance a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The aquatic center, that's really locker space. That's folks getting in and out into the competition pool, right? And that's-
Yes, it would include storage, it would include office space for the staff that works there, it would include the restrooms, the locker space, and I guess equipment, like pool equipment.
So
It
we're-
is-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The MV5 cost for all this, is that under the site work
It's
aspect here? Is that
embedded.
part of that 10.4 million?
Yes.
What's the component of that? How much?
There's usually,
So to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Bowe, each one of those elements has got the soft cost, which is not just our cost, but all your costs associated with it baked into each one. But there's not one that holds all the costs. It's each element, so
Okay.
as you look through that.
Another question for you. We are looking at, potentially, if we're gonna get a new pool, we will probably not need the old pool. If we remove the old pool, I feel like there will be a giant pool-shaped hole in the ground. Is there any site cost benefits to sticking like a new pool in an old pool-shaped hole?
can I partially answer that
You
one?
can personally answer that.
Partially, okay. I can answer part of that. One of the things that we thought about when we were initially thinking about phasing is trying to keep the pool open as long as possible while the new pool was getting built.
Okay.
So that's why you'll see in scenario one that everything would be different. You might want to put the pool in a different location and keep the old one open while you're building a new one. So that's one consideration, and then all that rubber.
But the answer is absolutely yes. If we want to dig a new hole, we can save money.
While you're looking at a pool not being operational for
Year and a half at least.
exactly.
Yes.
And we don't have another option.
But how long was West Side Pool? I mean, that was close, the renovations on that was about a year, if I recall, right? So,
I believe so, but there's a lot more different activities happening at this pool than at West Side Pool.
Right.
There's no competition pool there, correct?
At West Side.
At West Side?
Correct.
Yeah.
So Alachua County Schools use this pool for competition.
And Mr. Mayor, I think Roxy Gonzalez and Leslie's here in case you have any kind of operational questions about pools.
Y'all come on up, yeah.
When it's used for competition, is that a rental? Are we receiving a fee for it?
Yes, we have facility use agreements, basically aquatic agreements with different teams, high schools, for use of the facilities.
And then there's a diving component to this pool.
That's correct.
Yes. To the competition.
Our understanding is the only one that's deep enough to do those high school dive meets.
That's right.
The one in town. So if it were down for any length of time, I'm not sure what the backup plan would be.
Outside of the university.
Right, yes, that's true. University of Florida.
So I'm assuming the answer is either it depends or I don't know. But what roughly would we be looking at difference of price-wise if we did put the new pool where the old pool was?
Probably not that big a savings to have it down for a year and a half. Because ultimately, digging a hole is not that expensive, and we have plenty of soil from the new hole that we gotta dig to put in the old hole. And we've got soil from the stormwater basins that we've gotta
Sure.
use somewhere on site.
Piles are the only natural enemy of holes. Gotcha, good. So cancel that, okay.
So I want to talk about the multipurpose field real quick. The difference between what's there now and actual multipurpose fields that are lined and lighted is the difference between a few people in the neighborhood and maybe some other folks coming in and wandering around and using them, and what we have over at Abbey Wambach Park in southwest Gainesville, where people they're using that so much that it needs to be refurbished already. And I would remind everyone that at the top of the list, first or second, of community desires, when we ask the community, the whole community, what do you want for recreation space? Well, soccer fields. I mean, that is what people want. And you will, if we put 2 regulation fields there that are lighted, that will become the most used thing on this site pretty quickly. And for anybody who is in the neighborhood surrounding there, I know that some folks just wanted to be shocked when I said that, because that's a whole lot of new people coming into the park. But that's what our constituents told us they needed most for recreation. And we don't have a plan for where to put more regulation soccer fields in the community. This is the most obvious spot for that. It's also relatively low-hanging fruit as compared to all the other stuff here. This is something we can deliver fairly quickly that is something that people said they wanted. Now, I don't want to be accused of being a politician, but that seems like a good idea to me. Just saying. So, whoever else is.
And maybe I got a different read on that, because I know, so one of the big things that I heard talking to them was it still maintained itself as a community park. And as somebody who's out there fairly regularly, there's a lot of groups that use it informally. And I'm concerned about it turning into a Wombat Park where the only way you're gonna be able to use those fields is if those fields are reserved and you've gotta go out there, and the community itself isn't gonna be out walking dogs, out playing pickup games. There's kids that play soccer out there every weekend, or twice a week at least, just out there. And I know I personally heard, and I thought this was kind of the impression we got from most of the community outreach, was that it'd still be a community park and not something that turns into that reserved space. And I'd really like to make sure that I'm more concerned with that being open, usable green space that people can go play on than I am it being regulation fields and lined out and nice soccer goals in place and those type of things. Because I think it gets a lot of use as that now, and I don't know where you would go without that. And if you use it like it gets used now, and they are very nice fields, they're not going to be very nice fields very long. Because I said, just a whole bunch of folk use that.
So, given the informal atmosphere, I'll get to you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where would you put regulation soccer fields in the community if not here? You're an at-large commissioner.
I think Cone Park's the possibility. I think that we've got some very nice soccer parks around, and I don't think that we've got very many informal, open, lit fields in Gainesville that are available for folks to just go out and use. And when I see those parks, like when I drive past, like, I've not driven past Wombat Park, but like I said, when I look at I forget the name of the soccer fields out there.
Diamond? Jonesville?
Is it Jonesville? Yeah, so like you look at like Jonesville, or if you go towards like those type of things, I don't see a bunch of people out there just like kicking around. It seems like they're outside of the times they're being deliberately used. I don't know that, and especially in the middle of a neighborhood, people, I want that to feel like an open, welcoming spot. And I think that was a lot of what I heard at the community thing, was keeping a community park.
So I would say you definitely hear that from the people who live around it. And I'm telling you, at the top of the list, and I don't know if we have access to that list or not, when we said, Gainesville, what do you want? Soccer fields, real, actual soccer fields. That is, and there's, I mean, when you max this out, when you max this out, there's a lot of space for dog walking here. And that's an informal trail, unplanned activity environment. There's a bunch of space left for that here. But there is a dearth, speaking for the part of the community who has kids in the soccer playing ages, which is quite a lot of our community. There is a huge dearth of actual soccer fields in this community, huge dearth. I will have a hard time voting for something that doesn't include the actual multi-purpose fields.
And keep in mind, the stormwater ponds are these shallow, so they'll be usable as long as we're not in, wet conditions or heavy rain.
So Commissioner Sesta and then Commissioner Eastman, and then we'll go back around. Whoever's moving in. Oh, sorry.
I'll come back to it because I'm going to have a motion on this after discussion.
Commissioner Eastman.
Well, I did some questions on, various site plans, but Roxy, I think, wanted to chime in about
Yeah.
the use of fields. And I would like to hear what operations says.
So, just to kind of bring everybody back a little bit, the current fields right now are not level. They're far, there's probably space for one youth football game league that's as level as can be, which is what we currently mark out for our footballs. Everything else is far from level. So all that access space that people are utilizing currently, there's going to be more leveled areas to use it safer. So first and foremost, I think that's a key point to hit because currently it's not safe. The way it shifts, and it's just not safe. In regards to the programming elements of the usage of the fields, it's not going to be an Abbey Wambach location. That's not where our direction is going to. But it will be programmed because the mayor is correct that there is a high need for multi-use space, and it's not just soccer. You're looking at ultimate frisbee. You're looking at lacrosse. I mean, it's a variety of different field usage. In order to maintain the fields, yes, there will be a rental process, meaning some teams and organizations can reserve it. There is a high use of our current field spaces now that private organizations, not organizations, but private businesses per se, go out there and are running programs and activities on our fields that leave the city liable. So all that will be cleaned out as well, where we're requiring for that use. Now, outside of rental space, like we do our tennis courts, like we do pretty much all of our space within the city, is it's still open on a first come, first serve. So if nobody's using the field and, a group gets out there with their friends and they're playing a game, they're more than welcome to use it. Nobody's going to go out there to remove them to use that. It is a community use space. But in order to maintain the fields, there will be downtime to say this field's going to be on a rest period and this field will be open for that use. There is that shift. In regards to more open space in the city, well, out at Fred Cohn Park now, we lit the practice area in the back, so there's lights out there for that free use as well, which currently right now we schedule football practices out there. We schedule, some people call and say, hey, we want to reserve this section of the lights to go out and play a pickup game for our business. We see that there's no rental, absolutely, because there's no programs. There is a tier of structure that's done in the industry that it goes, if you reserve it, you have the right, but programming, city programs and partnership programs come first, because that's where you get the learning skill sets for the programming. And then outside of that, if it's not used, the community has access to use it. We have that. We've just updated our lights at Tom Petty Park. We have Green Tree that has lights. Now, we're looking at ways now to also utilize I know those are baseball diamonds and softball diamonds, but that grass space in the back, we can reserve that for pickup games, for league plays. You can do football out there. There's a variety of ways of doing that. We've been structuring our department here in the City of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs to start building the athletics programs and the community use to the fields. It takes time to do that, especially with all the improvements and changes. So everything we're changing our structure to make sure that we meet those needs. So just to give that kind of example of how we're still the community is not saying, we're not saying you can't use these fields for these pickup games, but if there is a league, that league's going to get scheduled to play, and it's going to be our league first, because those are the game schedules to play. The city's leagues first. Those are scheduled games to play, and then, but if it's open, and about 70% of the time it will be open to the public.
Questions?
I still, well, so I guess what I'm hopeful to get out of this conversation, one is to give staff mostly everything that they need in order to feel comfortable moving forward. I mean, making sure that we are giving clear direction on the Alachua County School Board and how we want to work with them, and then clear direction as to, what priorities we want to put into there. And so I'm trying to make expenditures and revenues match up, right? I got a little spreadsheet here of each thing. And the one thing, the big X factor, of course, is the site, which is, I think you guys have $10.4 million. And so I'm trying to make everything else work within there, but that X factor is so big in terms of, is this a $27 million project? Is this a $40 million project? And I'm just curious, because it seems like with the plan that you guys came forward, this $10.4 million, that looks like that's with the moving of the roads, the moving of the utilities, that is now looking at it kind of a reimagined footprint of the site. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And if we were to build within the existing footprint, I would imagine that number would go down pretty significantly.
Absolutely. And we can kind of help today. It'll be very high level today. If you have some ideas of what you might want, we can do some high level site working, but we'll come back to you, I think Andrew said, with a finite, you give us direction on these pieces and parts, we'll come back with a finite site. Right.
And that's great, because that's the thing that I could easily see putting the multi-purpose fields, which obviously we're within striking distance of it, already having to do the environmental remediation, right? So it seems like degrees of difference between a multi-purpose field and just green space that has been well laid with remediation put into it. I guess I have a question about what is the taking our needs and our wants and dreams out, like what is the facility that is here aside from Citizens Field, the stadium itself, which we know the state that is in, but what is the facility that we think is the most in need right now in terms of we're going to have to improve that in the near future?
I would say from discussions with PRCA, it is absolutely the pool. That based on the age and the condition, as you heard, the pool is the, out of all the facilities we're talking about, most in need of replacement.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would like to walk out of here with something that we have a really good first project out of it, which means that as far as I'm concerned, kind of existing within the footprint as much as possible, making sure that we're giving the school board everything that they need to give us a very, very good product at the stadium, so making sure we have the parking, all the site work and remediation needed for that. If we could improve that pool and we could have some fields in there and then leave space for, what is maybe future needs and wants in a phase two, I think that would be a very positive way forward. That would give us the biggest, we have to do the remediation anyway for the multi-purpose fields. It sounds like the pool is going to be a short-term need anyway. But I'd like to hear from everyone else on what they're thinking, but I think that would get us to a fairly inexpensive $25 million number. Like, that is something that's within striking distance of where we are, and we'd have a very good site at that point.
Commissioner Chestnut, and then Commissioner Nichols.
Okay, thank you. While you all are working on your maps, I want to put forward, I have two motions that I want you to think about as you're working here. And one is to authorize staff to work with the school board for the land sale of Citizens Field with the following stipulations. One, that a new stadium be ready for the 2027 school year. B, that we have a deed restriction that the property must remain as a stadium. Staff shall report the status to the city within 60 days in regard to this request. Is one motion. Want to talk about that one? Then I have a second one.
Can I talk about that real quick?
Yeah, okay.
Part of what we're doing here is the sizing. So, and I wanted to know whether the school boards, I think we got a letter at some point. Did they specify?
Can we get a second on this?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so it's, yeah, perfect. Did the school board letter, I know we had this back and forth with the school board, and they eventually gave us something that was a little more direct to us. Did it talk about the footprint that they would directly need, not all the other site work, road work, and did it line up with the 4x500 or the 400x580?
And does anybody from the school board want to address that?
Because one is basically with track, without track, because I know it changes a little bit of our site work and 14th Drive realignment.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Dr. Penn is on the Zoom, and hopefully she can hear. She's not, okay.
Can't hear well.
Okay, got it. So I'm not gonna speak for the school board, obviously, but we did.
Someone is standing on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yes, yeah. We did meet and we discussed the two options. I think as you heard in the presentation, the addition of the track and the additional space pushes the stadium, the potential stadium, into 14th Street. So any impacts to 14th Street is really what's going to drive the site cost up. And so ultimately, that's going to be something that I think the school board will have to potentially decide on the track or no. It is important to note that like the stadium cutouts are just conceptual, you know, so the final stadium design is going to be determined obviously by the school board should the commission move that aspect forward. They've indicated that they're looking for about a 3,000 seat stadium at this point. But I just want to emphasize that you know the site work just goes up extensively with any impacts to 14th Street. So if otherwise, I think that there's a good chance that we could squeeze a stadium into that without impacting the road.
Okay, that was
Without a track.
kind of my, just because if we're as we go along, we do kind of need to know from the school board a little bit of the sizing, a little, when we get to big price tag, you know, so thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a very good question, Commissioner, because when I heard that 3,000 seat number, that made me then think about what the actual parking need would be. So I know we have, you know, a couple of different things that we're considering. Can anybody speak to, if you have a 3,000 seat stadium, what should we be looking at in terms of parking?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's about 3 seats per 1 parking space. So that would mean roughly about 1,000 parking spaces are typically required if you look at the parking code. Granted, this is on PS zoning, so there is some flexibility there, and what we are proposing is about 600 spaces, as you saw on our scenario 1. There's the possibility that another 400 could be shown as occasional use in a grassed area, you know, that are just used when events happen at the stadium, and they would only be used in this area when needed. So there's ways to make sure that there's enough space, up to 1,000 spaces on the site. It would be, we just have to figure out how to make that work. But that would be only for the stadium. You know, that would be what the parking code requires just for the stadium. And those are
Right.
parking maximums as well.
Right.
In the City Gainesville code.
Okay, all right. Can you tell us a little bit about the event area in terms of capacity? I see, you know, we have what we're considering here. What's the capacity of the event area?
You know, I don't know if we have a capacity laid out for that I remember Robert did and any of the data you put together.
It's 300 to 400 people, I think, in lawn chairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easy.
What's the parking capacity now?
About 150 to about 200 spaces or so.
And I will add, the mayor and I happened to be at the Buholtz GHS game together the other day, both rooting for GHS, but that's downhill.
That's a problem.
Our kids can there.
Right, our children were much otherwise.
So I doubt there was 1,000 vehicles there, but that stadium, other than the sectioned off area that was sectioned off for structural issues, was pretty full, even despite the rainfall. So, you know, I don't know that we ever get to that 1,000 quality.
Yeah, I think for high school sports, it's probably more than 3 people per car. And you're looking at a lot denser car load, which means you don't have as many cars show up, so.
Okay. All right, I'll conclude for now.
Thank you. Mr. Book.
Were you before me, Commissioner Engel, or no? I don't know. Well, so Commissioner Chesley, you surprised me with that motion there.
I thought I might shock you today.
It was something, you know, the stadium's a different component, but what's clear is 14th Street, if we're gonna move forward and actually get something that citizens can see within the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, the street's gonna have to stay. Otherwise, everything changes, and Commissioner Eastman, you were talking about that, the infrastructure and the costs. It wasn't a perfect thing, but there's gonna be no perfect solution, so I favor that. I've also completed this, so if everybody will just vote on the stickers that I have here, we'll be in good shape. From an economic development standpoint, and you had talked about that quite a bit, Commissioner Duncan Walker, is I do favor a competition pool. I think we need to have it because it's something that both generates revenue. We already know it's a need. We already know it brings additional people to the area, and it will drive additional activity. So it's, that one to me, we have to have. In the existing monies that we have, Commissioner Engel, I was thinking when I see 4.2 million for 2 fields, and I'm thinking, that just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. Although we need the fields, you know, we are looking, it makes me harken back to the years ago, the bond issue, which was 1 cent, 1 year,
Oh,
1
yeah.
courthouse.
The Beta Brown.
1 cent, 1 year, 1 courthouse. Now, this has nothing to do with a bond, but what they said at the time was, we're not doing things inexpensively, but we're not gonna provide the Taj Mahal of a courthouse, and they did it. And I think this might be the case for our multi-purpose fields for NB5. Whether we get 1 or 2, or it's complete lighting, we do have to be mindful that if we put complete lighting in there, you are right, the neighbors have already told us, at the moment, they are not interested in that. And there is a balance between what the neighborhoods directly adjacent to park space say and have input against the rest of the community who may want to come. And so maybe my comment on the multi-purpose fields is there's the capability to not do the entire piece of the multi-purpose fields. We have to do the grading, I understand that. But if we do it all and then we fail because the neighbors have just said it's exactly what we said, we probably went too far. So that's a thought.
What if we do 2 fields done correctly without lighting?
Well, it might be that, right? I mean, it might be that you do the 2 fields, you reduce some of the infrastructure cost, you reduce the impact on the adjacent neighborhoods, and maybe it fits within there. So I know we're going to come up with a couple motions. And just a question here, 2 questions. The acreage related to Fire Station 3, I know we consider it separate, but we're doing that regardless. So a component of this gigantic thing is occurring that's separately funded, so the public understands what's going on. We're doing that. We're gonna have a new fire station. The training component is moving, right, to site that we already have. What happens to the administrative fire buildings that are in very, very poor shape? What are we doing with that piece?
So, on the tower, the training tower, we do need to move it. We haven't decided where we're moving it yet. As far as the existing northeast complex where fire admin used to be, we are going into the demolition phase now. We have the pricing for that. It's going through the contract process. We have to do some asbestos abatement. Then police and fire are going to spend about 2 months training in the buildings. And then we will proceed with leveling the site until we're ready to begin on the redevelopment process.
Well, that does give us some future space and potential opportunities if we can just get something, you know, something out of the ground. My last question is, the school board had talked quite a bit about their ability to use capital funds if they own the property. But a question that I don't think that we ever resolved was not public-private partnership or not us owning it as a city, but what about a public-public partnership where we retained ownership? This is just directly kind of thinking in your motion. And we work collaboratively. If they're able to do it in an area in southwest Gainesville between public, private, and additional public, would that still allow capital dollars from the school board to go towards that stadium? Because that's millions. Is there somebody with the
Is there
schools
anyone here?
that could answer that? This is the city potentially retaining ownership, the school board retaining ownership in a contract, just like we do for everything else. And yet capital dollars go, and then we're able to leverage in better ways to utilize our dollars. Public-public partnership. Why can't 2 governments get together and do that?
I can't speak on behalf of the school.
No, and I'm not asking. I'm asking for school board to speak on behalf of the school board or officials, because it's a huge question.
So I think I know what y'all's answer is, but if somebody from the school board want to come up and just say, give us a yes or no on that.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Atrium, the Deputy Superintendent. I'm not sure I can fully answer your question. What my understanding is, what our understanding is that we are required to own the property outright. So in terms of a public-public partnership, I think we will need to take that back to our council for a response.
Thank you for providing what you know kind of at this point.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I think to Commissioner Book's, the thrust of this, I think we're looking at this as a public-public partnership. You know, obviously, you know, it would be a potential property transfer, and the school board would obviously outlay, you know, a significant amount of capital to construct the stadium. Some of, I think, the aspects of the maybe ongoing sort of operational component for the stadium, such as, let's say, similar to the arrangement we have today where the city has like 3 or 4 events that we can host per year. Yeah, 5 events per year. Those types of aspects, we can work that out with the property transfer. And I think to have an agreement for some of those aspects without necessarily having to be in some sort of dual ownership type of situation, which it sounds like from the school board's side is probably problematic. But I think some of if the commission has certain things that you have in mind with that, those are things that we can discuss with the school board for the potential transfer.
And just to also add, you know, we've been in conversations with the school board now for three months plus, and that issue has been the base issue from day one. And just reinforcing what's already been stated by the school board, that they would need to own it in order to invest in it. So I think we've passed that unless the school board is gonna change their position on that. We started there and we didn't, you know, we could not, you know, make any headway. And so we are here. We did have a meeting with the school board about a week or so ago. Dr. Patton was a part of that. It was about the school board's participation in parking and stormwater, and that would be a shared cost. And that's where we are. There was no agreement that the 10.4 and I guess the 5 million in remediation costs would be split in half. I think the school board understands that they would have to share in it. We just don't know what that number is.
And that we'll have further kind of technical meetings to talk about that split. But I think that was the thrust of the conversation with the school board.
All right, Commissioner Brooks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I'm going to Commissioner Chestnut next, but first let me say that I've been thinking of this as a public partnership because it's the city, it's the county, and it's the school board. I mean, we're all in this together, or we're not in it for the most part. I mean, that's the reality. If we're talking about all the pieces that we're talking about, that requires everybody to be a part of this. And I don't want to think of this as a nickel and dime, you know, here's kind of sort of a soccer field and a 50-year-old pool. I want us to think about this as something that the community can say, yes, they're serious. So, Commissioner Chestnut.
Well, it's, I see it too as a public. It's an opportunity to get a brand-new stadium for our citizens. And I actually had a Cox Cable repairman come to my house last week. And he said, when are you all going to do something? Are you finally going to do it? Finally. He said, I played football over there in 1980. And it's horrible. So I think we have an opportunity to move forward, get this off the table, because I would like to see the funds go elsewhere for a senior citizen center. But I think it would be great if we could get this done for our youngsters. Now, I would add to that motion that I have up there is that the city would keep the days that we already have for activities there, and I think it's 5 days, 5 events a year. I would add that to it.
So, Mr. Mayor, just the figure in, I guess it was scenario 1, about $84 million. I know that's the top, and obviously we're trying to figure out what we can afford. But that $84 million, if I'm not mistaken, it did not include the stadium.
Right, that's
right.
So I just want, it didn't include the stadium.
Right, but that would be borne by the school.
Right. No, I get that. So, Commissioner Chestnut, my only question about your motion would be, are you firm on 2027? Because I'm not sure we can deliver that. I'm not sure anybody can deliver that.
No, the school board would be delivering it, not us.
Right.
Well, the 27, 28 school board year. They should be able to, you can't do it by then?
Less than 24 months?
No.
When can you do it, 30/30?
My understanding is at a rough estimate, it may be 34 to 36 months. So you're looking at 3 years.
So it's a
You
week
said what
of
now,
reasonably shooting
34 to
for.
what?
36 months,
So the 28
3
season
years.
is what you're talking about.
correct.
Okay, I think that would be the school board's argument with the citizens. Because I think the citizens will be in an uproar if it's 36 months. But hopefully you would be able to do something in less time. But that would be what you all would have to deal with the citizens.
Right, if I could, so this is Suzanne Nguyen, she's our Executive Director of,
Who are you?
Suzanne Nguyen, Executive Director of Facilities Planning and
Okay.
Construction.
Yeah, I would just like to point you to the timeline that your design team, your consulting team has provided to you on the cost estimate, if we could bring that back up. They have fall of 2028 timeline, which I think, and that's with, in my opinion, that's with decisions being made in a very timely manner, and that we get to go as soon as possible. Nothing can start on that timeline that's laid out for 3 years. It's 3 years until agreements are signed, which is going to take time, and that's going to push that timeline even further. So are you able to bring that up? It's at the bottom of your cost estimate.
Yeah, the budget slide. I believe it's on the budget slide.
Yep. It's on the budget slide.
There, right there.
So if you look at the schedule there, that's fall. That's moving now. That would bring you to fall of 2028.
Well, my motion is for the staff to come back to us in 60 days with the sale. So I think we've been talking about this, I think the manager said 3 months, but I believe it's been about 18 months.
I was referring to the meetings with the school
okay.
board, the specific meetings that you asked me to.
I believe that those have been about 18 months too.
So I think the other, do you want me to keep?
I believe their question's been answered unless they need further information.
I think the additional information is the school board has said they have 22 to 25 million to invest. That would be for demolition costs, design fees, cost share for stormwater and parking, and permitting construction of the actual stadium. There was nothing in there. I mean, if the more that you take away from that 22 to 25 million for a land sale, et cetera, the less money there is to invest in the actual stadium construction. So that's something I wanted to kind of keep on everyone's radar, that there are limited funds that the school board has to invest. Is that 22 to 25 million?
Okay, so in the sale of the land, is the school board responsible for the demolition?
That is something that's not been discussed.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chestnut?
Thank you. I conclude. Thank you.
Who's next? Are we, Commissioner Willetts, and then we're going to go to the public.
Right, so I know we have this motion there. I'm very skeptical of 27, 28 seems like what we have to do. I'm ready for of doing this for the school board, because that's the big piece of this. If they can bring in $20-something million of investment on that northeast corner, and then for me, the larger question is what do we do with the other corners and how we fund it? Because I don't think we have $84 million. I don't think we have $84 million. I'm not quite ready to go ask the voters for that to tack onto the property taxes. So what we're laying out here, I'm interested to see what other people think, because if we're talking about, is it that we don't need to double the size of the M1K Center? It just needs an addition of a senior center built onto it. For the competition and community pool, I feel like we got to, I know the competition pool is important to the community, the school board community and the competitive community, but to me, the community pool is very important. So I like the idea of building both of them. On my little map, I have that on the south side where the current fire structures are, both of those pools with the aquatic center, and tacking on the senior center on the north side of the MLK building. But the multi-purpose fields are important to me as well, because to some degree, if we're building very expensive multi-purpose fields, then I think we have to go and light them so that they can be used. So we got nice winter nights, people use them. Abbey Wambach has usage at night with the lights. But we really only have, inside of the city, I think we only have 3 adult soccer fields and 1 child, at Abbey Wambach. I think that's the extent of our fully designed, ready-to-play soccer fields. Abbey Wambach. So 3 adults and 1 largest children's field, right? Kind of a mini field. Outside of that, we have some practice spaces. There's some, pickup spaces. And so for me, the addition of those 2 fields are important. Just 4 soccer fields is not enough soccer fields for a city of 150,000 people. That is gross. And our study told us that. It says you need more soccer fields, right? I don't know if it was the people so much, but the numbers of what's comparable when we were looking at it. So whether they get done somewhere else, whether we somehow expand to Cone Park, whether we go all in and, buy 80 acres in Southwest Gainesville and say we're going to build even more. Listen, I'm up for it. Your backup, though, says that we have, I just want to get us back to some reality. In your backup, you have our wild spaces, public places, and it says over the next X number of years, we have budgeted $89.9 million in projects. We have revenues of 81.7, so anyone keeping track. We're $8.2 million short even for what we budgeted, and in the entire budget, 0 for a Southwest Park, according to the backup assault. So I gotta throw that back in there because we have already planned. We have 8.2 million we gotta come up with just to fill in the current gap. And so that's why I wanna talk about, are we going for an $84 million plan here or something less that lessens the pressure on our existing plans and potential Southwest Park. I don't think we need more soccer in Southwest. I think there's some other needs. But that's why I think the soccer needs to happen here. Because if we're looking for 8 years down the road soccer in Southwest Gainesville, then we're going to be pushing for a very large park. It's probably going to be past the interstate. I want a community neighborhood park, a neighborhood park in Southwest Gainesville on this side of the interstate south of Archer. And if we don't build these fields here, it's going to put pressure to deliver fields in the future. And they're going to go, I almost guarantee we're going to start looking at Southwest, and we're looking at a much longer time frame, a park past the interstate. Anyways, I just want to throw that out there. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Waldo. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you. I don't think that we need to add a second floor to the MLK Center, or really to do very much of anything to the MLK Center. I think we need to take $9 million and put it in a senior citizen center so that people throughout the city have access to senior citizen services. The people on the west side have an excellent senior citizen center. This center could serve Hawthorne, Waldo, Gainesville. The county may come in and help us with it, but I mean, the community would come into it. People would come into it, just as they do for the one out on 34th. But a $9 million investment, I was looking at putting it down near the entrance. I think it's the fire station, the firemen building. But as a standalone center, not built onto MLK.
So when Commissioner Chestnut, are you finished?
I am,
Okay.
for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. When Commissioner Engel, and then let's please go to public comment. And let's take action on the motion on the table before we move to what we want on the rest of it, just so we can move from one piece to the next. Commissioner?
Yep. Most of my comments are on the senior center and MLK, so we'll wait till that comes back around.
So let's do public comment, and then let's take 5, and then we'll come back and do the next piece.
I currently have no one signed up.
But it looks like.
Oh, there's one.
Y'all, thank you for bearing with us on the informality of all this. It is not how we would normally do it, but I don't know a better way to make all this happen. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Anytime I see Robert Walpole, I'm in a good spot, knowing we've got some intelligent.
They don't let us out if we don't. Yeah, don't worry.
longstanding. I don't know what that was. I want 10 seconds back for that one. Longstanding deal. What I would hope you, my elected officials, that folks remember what the mayor said and what Commissioner Chestnut said about public. There was a meeting on Tuesday that I don't want to overlook. The idea that whatever you do, hopefully you subject it to your staff and maybe some of you having a conversation with your colleagues across the street. Not that, because all the GCRA money that is or isn't going to go into surrounding this project, I know you're trying to talk about giving this to the school board to get their input and get it now versus later. One of the conversations I think you dealt with that is that you're consistently reporting back to decisions you've already made, and they're not excited about that kind of process. And the idea that I think moving forward today is a great thing, but having it subject to a conversation at least with some communication, maybe chair to chair or leader to leader. I'm not going to speak to who needs to have the conversation, but it would include them. I would also ask to the maker of the motion, Mr. Mayor, that also including in it whatever comes back also has a management operations component, that not only do they pay for your criteria, but what is operation going to look like and the commitment to that. Because one of the issues that it talked about of this facility that, again, I learned how to swim at Northeast Pool 50 years ago. One of these big issues is capital, everybody gets excited about capital and building. People don't get as excited about operations and maintaining. And what does that look like? And that if they're going to make that commitment, along with what the commitment you're going to make, that there is a consistent, dedicated source of funding for operational purposes for these. And the idea, if there's going to be an extension on the GCRA funding for the larger project, that you look at what that dedicated funding opportunity can look like without going to the voters, but looking at that for that next 20 years. So I don't want you all to be thinking about these things in silo, or that they be thought about in group. I agree with what Commissioner Chestnut is trying to do today. Long overdue. Love the idea of the school board being a partner, but you should all three partners in the entire thing and looking at it, and don't, as you're not making decisions for the school board, that you also not make decisions for the county without getting their input now. And I don't want to supplant that conversation that is really now just getting started in earnest. But also look at the operation. I know you had many concerns, as many of us have had, about the lack of operational support at Citizens Field as it is. So make whatever agreement comes back, it has a commitment to 15, 20, 50 years, whatever it is, for that component. But I'm excited about where you're going, support where you're going, just add some other pieces to it, hopefully, as you move forward.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else for public comment? Okay, let's take almost 10 minutes. We'll come back here at 4:30, or excuse me, 3:30. Sorry. Be back at 3:30.
get moving.
All right, let's reconvene here so we can center ourselves and get ready to move forward. Commissioner Willis, did you have something to offer?
Yeah, I just needed to correct myself. I'm so sorry. I said that the Southwest Park wasn't in our big list. Since I last saw this document, it's been renamed Sarah Nolan Manor as a moniker for the closest neighborhood to it. Thank you, city staff. It is still in there. I was looking for the word SW Park, which it has roughly been called for about a year or so. It is still there. They've just given the closest neighborhood so that we can start to imagine perhaps where it's going to be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Commissioner Chestnut, I wanted to check, are you sticking to that 27, or are you good with?
No, I'm
28?
flexible.
All right. Let's say 28 though.
28,
Okay, good.
but I don't want 30.
Yeah, right. Commissioner Buck, got a question?
Yeah, and I thought, Mr. Mayor, implicit in that motion there, Commissioner Chestnut, is probably the fact that when a contract is generated, hopefully between, and we come to some agreement between the city and the school board for the sale, that it does have all those other components that were already provided to the school board, but provided in reverse to there. Because the initial indications of the first contract was very one-sided, but in this case, we have the capabilities to do all the same things, and I think that's kind of implicit in your motion.
But the operations.
I think it's important to just kind of get that on the record, because this is something this is going to be a major component of a much bigger project.
Mr. Mayor, if I will, the only, I think, maybe clarification or guidance that I probably need from the commission on this is related to the actual transfer. So the school board, I think their last sort of iteration when they came to you all requested that the city transfer for $1. I just want to make sure that I have clear direction on when I sit down with the superintendent. Am I working to try to get the property, some revenue from the property, or are you all comfortable with what the school board's put down?
Commissioner Chestnut, your motion.
Thank you. I think initially we said that the land was worth $1 million.
Right, if you remember, we did
Yes.
order an appraisal. The total appraised value for, I think it was roughly about 6.8 acres, it was 10 million.
Right.
Most of that was with the actual stadium itself. The underlying land value from that appraisal was about $1.1 million. So, that's just background context, but ultimately, I'll take direction from the commission in terms of how to approach the discussions with the school board.
Well, are we in agreement to try to get the $1 million for the land? Since that's the appraised price?
I would vote for that, but every dollar they spend, they give to us as a part of the transfer is a dollar they're not going to spend on building the stadium. So, as long as we move to it with that in mind.
I would be comfortable with the city staff negotiating a sale price, but it's not $1. It's monies that allow us to pursue the entire project that we think is fair to both sides. We come back.
You feel comfortable with that, with what Mr. Book is saying?
I can be, yes. I will make myself comfortable with whatever direction you all have on the price piece.
I make a movement that Andrew's comfortable with.
All right, so Commissioner Willis, then we'll come back around to Commissioner Eastman and Commissioner.
So I don't have a full grasp on what all the cost sharing on
right.
stormwater and parking is, because if the school board really is fully partnering on that part, then $1 is much more comfortable with me. If it's that we need to get our $1 million now, because when they said they have $24 million for everything, is it that they're going to design a $23 million stadium and say, well, we have $1 million for stormwater? And so I need to understand a little more about that, because if they're really, if staff trust that we're going to really share the burden of parking and stormwater, then the $1 makes me feel a lot better.
So I ask y'all to think about it in this context. The school board's been very clear they cannot contribute money for anything that they don't own. So if we want a purchase price for the land in the stadium, the purchase price should be based on them contributing to those off-site improvements. So that sale price would be commensurate to their component of the parking, their component of the stormwater, their component of the contamination. If you want anything more than that, then we would want to get that kind of direction from you. But that would be the baseline, whatever their part of those three components are.
Okay,
So,
I think that's what you all said.
And just to add to that, realistically, I think it's probably fair to say that we're talking in the ballpark of, $4 to $5 million of site work just for the infrastructure to support the stadium. That would be the school board's contribution on that side.
All right.
And so do they, sorry, I guess I'm still confused. Do we need to sell it for 4 or 5 million so that then we do that work? Or is it that we sell it for less and they are doing some of that work on site? I'm still confused, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think what any sale, I think from the city standpoint, the proportional infrastructure to support the stadium is a school board cost. It is a contribution in one way to the overall project because it is, cost sharing that infrastructure. Anything above that in terms of like just a transactional cost from the selling, the city selling it would be over and above what they're already going to contribute in terms of providing stormwater, sharing parking, those types of things.
Okay, sorry. So are they going to, in essence, own a part of the parking lot that they're going to build?
I think that from the parking side, because that'll be a joint use, we're going to split that. I don't believe that we're going to, that the intent will be to convey the parking area, but that they would have, use of that, and then we would jointly build that together.
Okay.
Okay, so, Mr. Eastman, did you have something?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, that this was almost identical to my question, except that I believe that the school board said they can't build things off of their property. So how would we do how would we jointly refurbish a parking lot? That is the purpose of the transfer, right?
Right, so the transfer would be the stadium property itself. And part of that transfer, the purchase price would be based on their contribution to the infrastructure. We would then design and build the infrastructure to support the stadium, and they would have rights to use that infrastructure. But they are indicating they can't spend any money on that property that is not being transferred to them. So they wouldn't design and build the parking, they wouldn't design and build the stormwater, they wouldn't design and do the contamination. That would be on the city to do as part of that transfer agreement.
But they could spend by their interpretation of state law, they could spend that money, they could buy land with that money.
Correct.
We would have that capital cost, and then we would spend it on these shared uses.
Correct.
So this motion, as it exists, gives staff the opportunity to negotiate.
That's right.
And bring back the deal for us to say yes or no on, and for the school board to say yes or no on. But this authorizes staff to talk.
To negotiate.
Right, without saying $1 or $1 million or $100 million or whatever. I like 100 million, by the way, if you make that work. Kidding, y'all can smile, it's all right. But this doesn't nail down a dollar figure. This gives staff the opportunity to negotiate with their staff to come back with what works.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel comfortable about the motion as it exists without necessarily adding a dollar figure.
Does this motion also include our current usage? You mentioned that as a part C on there.
I don't see it. We currently have use for 5 days or 5 events a year, I think.
Sorry.
Yes,
Make that C.
5. We need to put that in
Make that part C.
the motion in part C. Yeah.
I imagine that could be part of a rental agreement. I just wasn't sure if that was a part of the motion at the moment.
No,
Okay.
I had said it, but we need to get it up there. C.
Do you guys? That's it. Okay, Commissioner Deckelbaum, do you have anything to add on this one?
No.
We'll go around. Okay, Commissioner.
I've got several questions on it, but it's stuff I don't need staff to try and answer on the fly in the middle of the meeting. So some folks. But yeah, I'm comfortable giving staff the ability to go ahead and start negotiating out of contracts, and we can talk with them about points of that contract between now and then.
Mr. Mayor, I just mentioned to Andrew about the extension of the lease for another year,
Yeah.
so we may need to just incorporate that, so it's all taken care of.
Not per week.
It says per week, per year.
Oh. But, okay, but it's not 5 days per year. It's 5 days per year.
Okay, what else? Is there anything else that needs to go in this before we vote on it?
If appropriate, we would like some, you're okay to be able to extend the lease, the current lease for another year with the school board. Once they're working on completing some repairs to the stadium. Ms. Wynn may be able to speak about that, but as the manager indicated, it really is it's a manager level decision, but since it's been talked about with the commission before, we wanted to get your feedback there.
So a Part D that would guarantee extension of the current contract through the 27 school year.
Right.
Is that?
That's correct, and the manager already has the ability to execute. I just wanted to make sure that it was, everybody was aware of that.
Right, okay.
Can I?
Roxy and then the attorney.
Sorry, yes, on the motion, instead of 5 days per year, can we put 5 times per year?
Oh.
Only because days mean we get that whole day, and in reality, we get an event or an activity.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Attorney.
Just to clarify, I assume this is a motion to negotiate a transaction that will then be brought back to the commission, and further that the deed restriction term is sort of generic in nature as to, I don't know what that proper vehicle would be, whether a restriction that may be subject to a 30-year timeline or a right of reverter, which might have restrictions on it as well. But the intent would be to try to find a way to assist management in negotiating a sale that would provide for as long as possible to be used as a stadium. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, but is what the state did with the fairgrounds. They put in a reverter clause, and they had to go back in order to have a different use of the fairgrounds, now from a fairgrounds to selling it to the Corps of Engineers, the Army.
So again, just a deed restriction in a broad sense.
Yes.
And whatever that vehicle, that mechanism might be to effectuate that is what we would look into and be able to assist them with negotiating.
Any other questions on the table about this motion, just motion number 1? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously, Madam Clerk. Okay, now let's have the conversation about the other pieces of this and how we move forward with those. And Commissioner Chester, if you would make a motion just to get us started here.
Okay, I'll just put a motion on the floor. Would be, second motion is direct staff to begin solicitation for architect and engineering design firms for a standalone senior citizen center to be built in the MLK complex, and provide periodic updates to the commission on progress on the projects with the engineer and architect firm to the commission.
So, Commissioner, do you want to add in the other recommendations from staff to any of this?
Yeah. Then I would add, can I go on?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. All right. Staff would also evaluate funding options from GCRA, Wild Spaces, Public Places, and HUD Section 108, and provide direction regarding proposed reprioritization. Approve preparation of a solicitation for final design, remediation, permitting, and construction services for the site build-out, and return to the commission with consultant team selection, scope, and fee to advance the Phase 1 design to support stadium infrastructure, and provide direction on additional recreational elements to include in Phase 1. Is that?
Yes, and I think from this motion, I think we would want you all to have discussion on what other elements beyond if the senior center.
Yes, I was just trying to get something
Sure.
on the table
Okay,
to
all right.
work from. And we can have conversations about what comes off there and what stays on there. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for that. Commissioner Engel, you have anything for that, or?
I did. So, for the standalone senior center, looking at the how we're gonna put these pieces together, I'm a little concerned on how it works. In that, we had talked about, we want to have the current pool up and running while we build the new pool. Looking at this map, and just kind of a glance around at where most people's pools ended up, are we going to be able to keep the current pool, build a competition pool and a community pool, and still have the existing MLK building there? And if we're gonna have to take down the existing MLK building to have room for the extra pools, what does that mean for a standalone center versus looking at trying to build something in one piece? And I guess, as I said, just trying to get the pieces to work together, it looked awfully tricky to me to get an aquatic center, a comp pool, and a community pool, leave the existing pool, and leave the MLK center. So I don't know what order we would do those in that would keep everything running.
So
See what I'm
we're
saying?
gonna need input from NV5 in all of this.
Yeah.
So if the intent is, one of the primary goals is to do a competition pool and to keep costs as minimal as possible, we would site the pool where the existing northeast complex is now that we're getting ready to demolish. So there's enough space there to do competition pool, a community pool component if you would like, and the aquatic center there.
Just on the south side of the existing
On the
MLK.
south side of existing MLK. Both the existing pool and MLK remain operational. Once you're done with that pool, if there's any other component you want to advance from there, it could go north of the MLK, the
Okay, so
existing
then,
MLK center where the current pool is.
So then theoretically, the senior center could be where the existing pool is.
Yes, the senior center, an event ground, any outdoor basketball court, any other component that you might want to see incorporated into the site.
All right, but to make that work, we would have to do all the pool work before we built the senior center.
Correct. Alternatively, you still have the space where the vacant space south of Citizens Field and where Fire 3 is currently, so that there's that space there as well. We intend to break ground on Fire Station 3 in May. It'll be about a year time frame to get that constructed and CO'd. So 27, we would be able to remove current Fire 3 and begin something there. It's going to take time to go through this procurement process.
Sure.
It's going to take time to go through a design process. So that's,
All the new buildings are gonna require the
yeah,
terms, right, all the infrastructure work to get done first.
Sure.
correct.
Which we can also add in that with multipurpose fields, which don't displace anything.
Correct.
You're getting them in there.
Just saying.
The multi-use fields and the storm and the contamination work will impact the uses of the fields. It's on the same footprint, but outside of that, if we're strategic, we can keep things in operation. And that was why phase one was, the scenario one plan was developed the way it was developed. But we can get a lot of those components in the ground a lot more cost effectively without trying to rebuild MLK.
Okay. All right.
Oh, somebody else can go, but.
Commissioner Eastman, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. All right, so I do think that, all right, so we talk about revenues meeting expenditures and how much money we have allocated to all of this. I'll say that it's hard because you have a competition pool, which I guess that was 5.8 million. You would have a community pool that gets thrown in there at 3.2 million, but you're saying the community portion could be just added to the competition.
What you have in front of you with those numbers are the big vision.
Right, right. But it's only number down.
So,
Yeah.
everything can always be scaled back.
Right.
The competition pool, that's a pretty solid number for what the need will be with the deck and the stands and all that. If you want to combine the two pools in some form or fashion, you're going to get some economy of scale. The community pool is not fully baked out as far as the scope, but if that's a component that you want, for in that footprint, that's what we can work towards.
All right, and then there's the parking spaces, the 250 spaces. Is that a required portion of it, or do we think we could, I think that's at 2.5 million that's here? Or is that part of the site work overall?
The 250 spaces, there's numbers associated with that. It's not associated with the site work, but it is fully baked costs. Robert will have to help me. I think it was 10,000 a space.
That's right. Yeah, when it's fully banked, yes.
Yeah, 10,000 a space for paid parking. We would suggest doing, if you're not going to put another use south of the stadium, doing some paid parking immediately south of the stadium. But we are going to have to look at the site in its entirety and see how we're going to squeeze parking in and reimagine parking, because we haven't done that yet outside of scenario one. So as we start moving things around, we still need to figure that out and then come up with some type of cost to that site work component.
Okay.
So what I think staff needs from us is priorities.
Yes.
You want, here are the buildings we want, here's the list we want them in, and then what we can afford gets paid for, and what we can't, we find other ways to approach it in the future.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Mr. Chester.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for the senior center, which is 9 million as a standalone, but now I'm looking at the senior center as a standalone down here at the, I think this is the old fire administration building.
That's right. I do want to make sure that, like, the commission gives us flexibility. Like, we're not necessarily looking for a put it here, put it there, because we're going to have to come back and bring design.
Okay.
It's more, do we want it, do we not?
Okay, all right, yes, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and this all helps us see, oh, if we put that there, then that can't go there.
Right.
But it's not in stone.
Okay, so what I would like to suggest, after going to the county commission meeting on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, with Commissioner Eastman and Commissioner Book, along with staff, I would like to see us go back to the county commission now before December. I think our next joint meeting is in December. But if we could sit with them now and look at perhaps our priorities for the joint use money, maybe we'll be able to get a senior center out of that fund if we can jointly approach it. But I think we need to be at the table with the county commission, let them hear what we're proposing, see where we want to go. But looking at reprioritizing GCRA money with the county commission.
Okay, I mean, mostly it's not really a reprioritizing, but because it's all
Well-
that site. But, yeah, I mean, I don't mind bringing them in on it. What I don't want us to do is start coming up with brand new ideas after we've already paid for the ideas in front of us.
Okay, I think that they're pretty clear on, if we come back to them, it's on this one project.
Right.
I think they're pretty clear that we're after the senior citizen center, which I think that they too would have an interest in. So I would add that
And,
to the,
and then we go to the county? Or do we-
that we look at scheduling our joint meeting earlier. Right now it's scheduled at December.
Okay.
I don't know how other people feel about that, but
I mean, I'm generally comfortable with that, but it's a question of how that works on the calendar.
Right.
Commissioner Book, next Mr. Willis.
Yeah, I thought we should probably kind of deal with the motion and then,
Okay.
and then, direct staff, get with the county staff, get the feedback on our existing plan, what we have here, what we know, and what might be options, like funding options,
so leave the motion as it
reprioritization.
is.
I probably would deal with that motion and then deal with the county staff separately, so we've given them the opportunity full input. The communications director's here, so he may have a different thought about that. But I don't know if you heard that, Mr. Sexton, we have a motion on the floor, and the thought was, we're clearly going to want, it sounds like we're probably clearly going to want to get some county feedback, not necessarily about where things are put, that's not where we're going, but things like, funding or commitment or, partnership, public things that.
So before we do that, I would say that items 3 and 4 and staff recommendations are essential to any of this.
3 and 4. So we want to add 3 and 4 up here?
Okay, while we're working on that, Mr. Sexton.
Mr. Chair, I did have a quick conversation with Commissioner Chestnut, and the reprioritization that we discussed was wild spaces, public places. The county, as you know, has allocated $6.66 million for joint projects with the city. I have no idea what of that money has been spent or allocated. If it has not been spent and it's been allocated, I think that was the kind of reprioritization that Commissioner Chestnut and I talked about, and I can tell you I think the county would be certainly supportive of that as one way to come up with extra funding.
So let's be careful we do that. We don't have our list of wild spaces in front of us, so let's not bump off items that we're not even, but we should not be doing that because we have not, we should be real careful about that because we didn't tell the community we're interested in that. Mr. Singleton, we'll come back around.
To add on to Mark, the 6.6 million, both bodies have given us direction on how to spend that money, with the exception now with the 1.5 million from Thelma Bolton. That is, back on the table for discussion. We do plan to give the City Commission a Wild Spaces Public Places update in November and go through the entire work program. It is in your backup today, but we will be discussing that 1.5 million at that time as well, unless you want to give us direction on that today.
Well, I certainly think we want to bring that 1.5 million into this.
Well, so the 1.5 million, we already said that we wanted to use some of that to build a trailhead there.
Oh.
So we have, city has 1.5 million allocated in Wild Spaces Public Places.
So the county's 1.5 million.
The county has we have had an agreement with not signed yet, an agreement for 1.5 million for the Thelma Bolton Center. Since that scope has changed, we either need to have that discussion with the county commission about the change in scope, or we need to ask them to reallocate that 1.5 to another project.
So I would, there is work that can be started now. And there's work that makes sense to have a conversation with our co-funders. But to get moving on some of this, I think is important. Instead of kicking down the road, kicking down the road.
And I think we've added 3 and 4 to this motion.
Yes. Okay, so we'll start here and go around.
All right, so let's just, to put it all into perspective here, if we have 11.7 in GCRA funds, we have 5 million in wild space public places, and with that 1.5 million, we're now up to $18.2 million in total spending on this project. You got remediation at 5 million, you got site work at roughly 6 million, is that a fair?
I mean, I would caution the site work is something that we're gonna have to bring back because we need you all to decide what elements you want out there.
And you can't do that until we do this.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I guess my only point here is that with that, if we do a competition pool of 5.8 million, you basically, you're right at that level at that point, right? So I think we do have to prioritize. I mean, $9 million as a standalone senior center that's the whole amount. You're now about 1.8 million low, depending on what you're doing with the site. So, if this motion on the table means that the decision on Citizens Field is that we're doing a senior center, we're not really doing the multi-use fields, we're not really doing the competition pool, just so that we're taking money at that point. We could defund, the entire Morningside project. We could defund the entire Depot Park project. That gets you a little bit more, but it's, you're making prioritization decisions now. like you are in it, you know? I mean, so I do think we have to decide, do we want to have a senior center here? Do we want to have an aquatics pool here? Do we want to focus on the multi-use, on the multi-use fields? And I wish we had firmer numbers here for than site work, or that the multi-use fields would not be the Cadillac version, but I guess we're kind of throwing darts at a dartboard on some of this stuff.
Unfortunately, we are.
But I do think that we need to, take it seriously as to what we want to do with it. I have said that I think that it's important that we have that we build a new pool, because that is where we have the most, that is where our biggest need is in terms of new infrastructure. I agree with Commissioner Book that it is important for economic development to have that competition pool. I think the fields is already doing the remediation. It doesn't seem like it's that much of a lift to simply have some nicer fields that are out there, and it is a big need. I remember when I was campaigning, it's true that the folks that are around there have a lot of questions about, how that space gets utilized, but hopefully we can set up tree buffers and things that would support that. But there are people that live just on the other side there that are tired of driving their kids up to Jonesville every time they want to go play soccer, and that is a huge pain. And so long as it can have that mix of open and green space, as well as the competition fields, I think we'd be able to balance that out. We do active recreation and nice walking trails around Tom Petty very, very well. I think that would work in this place. And then with the senior center, I think making sure that there's a place for it in the future where we actually have the utilities and everything set up for it would allow us to have that conversation with the county at that and say, is there some way that we can partner on this and add this to it, but make sure that there is place for it at that time, I think would put us in a very good position. That's sort of, that's my prioritization list. And I think, and then if we want to go beyond that amount, even with that amount, we're going to have some hard conversations about what we want to cut out of existing wild space public places, whether we want to borrow money out of our HUD 108 program, how much we want to spend in fund balance. I think even with that, we still have to have those discussions, but we're getting close there. But the senior center is, it's a large investment at that point, but I'm happy to hear.
Okay, and I'm just going to go around. Commissioner, do you want to mention anything down now, or do you want to come back to?
Actually, yes, thank you. And I do want to kind of, if you don't mind, take us back to the beginning, because I need some clarity. I know that what I recall when we first started having the conversations around the senior center, it was something that we were considering that was a part of the existing MLK Center. And I'm happy to entertain anything, obviously, that any of my colleagues come up with. I just need a little bit of clarity about what the difference in usage, what the expanded idea is that moved us from MLK, using it, or, I believe it was an additional wing or something that was inside of MLK, to now the separate set-aside building. I just need a little bit of clarity about that and how we'll utilize the space as a standalone versus what was originally conceived, Commissioner Chestnut, as a part of the MLK Center.
I think you'll get better utilization out of a standalone, just as we have out on 34th. In this center, you would have a wellness center, you would have a kitchen, you would have a multi-function space for recreational activities, but I think you would get better use out of it. And the idea is to be able to make it available to the community, probably for rental, for graduations, for banquets, for activities.
Okay.
Very much like the 34th Street Senior Center, which is a revenue generator.
Okay. So your original concept, when it was just in MLK, what was that?
Well, I didn't have that concept fully developed.
Okay.
What I have fully developed is a standalone.
Okay, I got you.
And Mr. Mayor, maybe just to add a little bit, the original, and I think it's on the list here, is was to build a brand new MLK.
Brand new MLK.
With a senior component in that building. But obviously you can see that, blows our budget.
Right.
And so I think that's where the concept came from.
Okay.
Now, I guess one thing one aspect that I don't think the staff or the design team spent a whole lot of time on is refurbishment or renovation of the existing building. I think it was, okay, we want to expand. We looked at the costs between adding on to the existing center. Those costs were commensurate with building brand new, and so we moved into a brand new design. We didn't, because I don't think that was the direction from the commission, we didn't look at the existing center. Can we renovate or change or modify the interior space to accommodate other uses? That would obviously be would also be a potential option if that was the direction of the commission. But just context for how we got to where we are.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And kind of to that point, to give us some more options, Commissioner, is that something that you'd be willing to consider? Just because right now, you know, and especially with how Commissioner Eastman kind of relatively succinctly broke down some numbers and how we would have to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul to arrive at something that's a little bit more developed per the concept that you're actually wanting to achieve. Are you willing to kind of consider what Andrew was suggesting, or you just dead set on the?
I think what Andrew is suggesting, that is the $45 million.
That's the original.
Yeah.
I think, well, I want to be careful. I wasn't suggesting anything.
Right.
All I was saying is one aspect would be that we didn't look at is with the existing center,
Yes.
renovating that. You know, obviously the gymnasium is a big component of the actual total square footage, but there are some, multi-purpose rooms and gym facilities on the other side of the hallway. I don't know how limited, given that it's still only a 19,000 square foot building at the end of the day. So I don't want to sit here and tell you we can fit everything, a senior center in the existing center, because that's something we haven't looked at.
I got
And
you.
what we're looking at is a 10,000 square foot space.
Okay, what you're wanting to do is 10,000 square feet.
Right, we have 19,000 now. The meeting room at the, you've been in there, the meeting room at the current MLK Center is about from that pole to the end of there. That's the meeting space. And that is divided, so it's a small space.
Let me get a little more detail and a little more clarity. Andrew, if you can, what we're looking at here with this $45 million price tag, that was the two-story MLK, right?
That's correct, yeah.
What is it, or does staff have a number, did we talk about? Because I've heard so many numbers today. Now I just need a refresher.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
which number?
Have we talked about what it was or what it would be to just, with the existing footprint or with a one-story center? I know from the very beginning, we talked about 2 stories. There was going to be a track up on the top level and you could look down. It was all beautiful and it was a big dream. But had the idea ever been floated about what it would be to come a little bit closer to, let me just say it like this, for a one-story MLK center that's similar to the footprint that exists now, that was inclusive of some senior components, or what you just mentioned? Was it always the 2-story, $45 million idea?
It was always an additional basketball court, which was primarily where the square footage came from. The additional square footage came from. And then it was a expansion of some of the same elements that are in the existing MLK in terms of, expanded fitness center, some of the event space and kitchen space, and multi-purpose rooms that were intended to support senior programming. There's some office space as well. So a one-story footprint with the existing MLK. My recommendation would be, it doesn't make sense for us to build a brand new MLK with the same size that we have, because most of the, I think the square footage for the new building came from the addition of that additional basketball court.
Gotcha, okay. And I see Brian
And
behind
I
you.
would add, if the existing MLK cannot fit everything that's been envisioned, and that's why the two-story version
Yeah.
was developed. If we were to stick with the current MLK and we want more uses out of it, then the recommendation would be either to build a separate building or to add on to it. The HVAC systems have recently been replaced at MLK. The roof has been recently replaced. So we've made a lot of investments into the current building. So trying to tear down walls and add on to it will be a little counterproductive, but adding a wing or a second building associated with it makes a lot more sense from a practical and a financial standpoint.
Adding a wing.
A wing or a breezeway with a connection. I mean, there's multiple ways to do it. And we would just have to sit down with the design team.
And that's what we haven't seen. That's really what I was trying to get to, the multiple ways to do it. So we have a $9 million way that's $10,000 square feet that we can consider, but we haven't seen the other multiple ways that we can consider trying to accomplish Commissioner Chestnut's goal.
I would say that the per square footage price to add on is going to be proportional. So, I mean, you could talk about a smaller building, you do the cost per square foot, it's going to be about the same whether you're adding on a wing or building a completely standalone building. What it's trying to get at is we don't want to touch the existing MLK a lot because we made a lot of investments to it unless we're just talking about an interior remodel, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because there's really not a lot of room in it.
Okay.
But you could repurpose certain components of it and build a smaller addition as well. I mean, but the costs are, it's a trade-off. These days it's not that cost-effective to do renovations and additions as it used to be.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut.
All right, Commissioner Engel. Actually, before I go to Commissioner Engel, let me say that a thing we're going to need to do that I've done when it comes back around to me is we need a list of priorities. You know, here's our number one priority, and number two, and number three, all the way down. And I would request, Commissioner Chestnut, that we replace number one with whatever our list is. And that way, we know what we're working with.
Right.
And so
Okay.
matter of fact, I'm gonna throw my list out there, and then we'll do Commissioner Engel, and we'll go back there. So, number one, it has to be remediation site work. One and two, remediation site work. Because we can't do the other stuff without those, but we don't know exactly what that is until we know what the rest is. Then, and this doesn't have to stay like this, but mine goes to then, multipurpose fields, competition pool, senior center, let y'all catch up there, aquatic center, community pool, courts, and then event center / playground. And we can play with that however we want. That's just what, if it were me voting right now, that's what I would do. Commissioner Engel.
I think we're similar on that. I think there's running some trouble with that. I don't know that you can have a competition pool without an aquatic center. Like, you're gonna have to have locker rooms, you're gonna have to have bathrooms. I guess you don't have to have bathrooms in a pool, but, so there's, I think those are tied together. So maybe you can come back and put the community pool in later, but I'd say competition pool and aquatic center are necessary together, and you're looking at $12 million there. I think the remediation of the site work definitely has to go forward. You can do a lot of the site work on the front end if we will decide that we want to do everything that makes the stadium possible. Whatever it's going to take to put the competition pool, community pool eventually, and aquatic center on the south side of MLK. Then I would look at wherever you and me end up butting heads to the point on our multi-purpose fields. I said, I think you can pick a lot of that up in the site work, and then if we want to drop back and make particularly nice fields out of part of it or all of it or whatever, that's an option. when we get to MLK and the senior center, we've already kind of hit budget by this point. I would really like to look at, because by the time you get, and just the site work and the pools, we're going to be several years down the road to actually accomplish any of that. We should also be looking at a new stadium. So I think at this point we can step back and point at the thing and be like, look, we've done something. I would like to look at potentially putting something, either bonding language or something, to get us to the point that we decide whether we want to do a for real big expansion of the MLK Center, inclusive of the senior center, or whether we want to do a scaled back senior center, either standalone or as a thing on it. But make that decision after we've taken what are pretty accomplishable steps that you can do the site work for and get most of your answers on the entire north half of this field, plus the pool, with the understanding that we are going to do something, and it will either be a new MLK Center or a standalone senior center beside it after that.
So we can take that, if we complete the list.
Yeah.
And then we can go to the county and say, here's why we want to extend.
Sure.
So we can bond this stuff.
And I think I think that would be my list on that. And then again, like if you want to drop back and put an event space or some basketball courts, any of that's real easy to do. Like the site work doesn't have to be especially inclusive of that moving forward. But I say the site work that allows the stadium to move forward, followed by the pool, and whatever we're going to do down there. But that site work and remediation should get you decently usable fields prior to them being the $4 million full-on soccer lit everything. Then the pools, then make that decision, and then look at what we're going to do with the MLK Center and Senior Center. I think they definitely need to be accomplished, but I think the actual order you go in there, if we try and get the senior center in front of that, you're going to start running into footprint problems and really restrict yourself on what you can do with MLK, and that is a thing.
And keeping in mind again that we're going to build a new fire station while all this is going on too.
Yeah.
That's separate and apart.
I'm very in favor of putting a senior center there, but whether that's standalone or part of an expanded MLK, I think it's going to depend on budget. I think that's going to depend on whether or not we can get a bond passed.
Right. And I do want to make sure that as y'all are working on, prioritizing the list, we will come back to you, with once you have kind of crystallized the things you want, we will come back to you with a proposed budget. And I think we'll work with the designers to have a little bit more clarity or a little bit more dialed in site numbers, so we can kind of see where we land with available funds versus where we are. So I did want to make
And I can't tell you how much I look forward to doing this again.
100%.
All right, Commissioner Buck.
Done, Commissioner Engel?
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're actually getting pretty close. We've had tremendous community input over a long period of time. There's no lack of that. We've had surveys that have provided us what the community says they want. And then we have a budget which basically defines what we can do and get something in the ground. So the way I prioritize it is this. If it's something we already have, it's going to go to the back. And so in that regard, the senior center, at least we have it. It's not ideal that we have it on the northwest side of town, and we do need it, but at least it's a use that we currently have that allows our community to attend. So just in that basis alone, I put that towards the back of things that we don't have, which is after it's, depending upon what happens with the motion, it's remediation and site work. I do believe that you're correct. We've got to put the infrastructure in, Commissioner Engel, and we'll probably save some caps, some monies there. It is the competition pool and aquatic center. Next, that is a one piece together, and then it's from there. It's purely what the money drives. It's probably, I've done some of the math too. I know you have a spreadsheet, Commissioner Eastman, but it's probably some scaled back version of those fields. We will get to some of those fields because we need it, because we know we need it. It may not be complete lighting, and I'm not sure we would want to put that in first anyway. You put the infrastructure, the utilities, and the capability, so it would be what the city staff says they can do with those fields. And then the last piece is what's left for some parking, and if there's any monies at the moment for phase one, it's what we have left we have to provide parking. There's no opportunity to provide facilities and pieces and then not have the ability for people to come. I don't want to pay for a parking space, but it's a requirement. So that would be it. We'll see what happens here, but that would be a remediation site work. The competition in Aquatic Center is one piece. You can't do one without the other. It's whatever we can do with the fields and whatever's left for the amount of parking we can pave over at the moment. And that's it. And that gives us several pieces.
And with the advice we got a couple hours ago was that the lighting was about $2 million on those fields. So you cut that number in half right
That's
away.
exactly what, and we still get tremendous use out of the fields in a more formalized way and still save us some money. So that potentially, and then later we find out, can we do that in different ways? And we have our county partners that I do believe will be committed in different ways. We don't know specifically, but it sounds like in their informal conversations, they recognize the regional value of this comprehensive project.
Commissioner Chestnut.
Okay, well, I would first, my first priority is to bond as much of this as we can, so we'll have the funds to go forward. Senior Citizen Center as a standalone, remediation work, multipurpose fields, pools, aquatic center.
Okay. Commissioner Williams.
Succinct.
So I leaned towards, obviously, the remediation site work. For me, the multi-purpose fields they rise to the top. I appreciate the idea of actually maybe not lighting them right now. I know that future Wild Spaces Public Places has some lighting overhaul a couple years into the future, so that maybe that in the future we wrap lighting these in with that future. And we look at a bunch of different park spaces and lighting needs, wrap that into a future contract. The competition pool and aquatic center, my heart says community pool, but I'm hearing need. My heart says community pool first and let the competitors figure out, build or buy their own pool, but I am hearing that need, which pushes senior center down for me and then community pool down as well. I would obviously like a site that a community pool, that there's a spot for it that links up to the aquatic center and maybe it's temporarily parking, green space, whatever, and then eventually we drop it in there. For the senior center, I just going into the future, I like the idea of going to the county saying, is this where your 1.5 million you're willing, because they wanted us to save the Thelma Bolton Center. Thelma Bolton Center had multi-purpose space in it, so that I think we're gonna need some more multi-purpose space, so maybe that senior center helps fulfill that. So maybe the county might be interested. I'm less I'm just talking about the 1.5 million joint project with the county, and then just for fun, I'm gonna throw out whether that senior center is attached or whether it is very close by with the breezeway. We fix all of our problems. A covered breezeway for pickleball in between the north side of MLK,
You have Tom Petty.
or it could be covered basketball courts. We don't have very many covered basketball courts. I'm sure a structural engineer is going to tell us no, because if a hurricane comes and picks up that roof, you don't want to tear down your buildings at the same time. I'm pretty sure engineers back there are already telling me that with their eyes. That's kind of where I stand. I'm not particularly interested in a very large bond. Of course, what we've laid out is a little smaller. It's not 85 million we need. If it's just a little bit of money, I lean a little more towards that, but it's hard for me to ask for bonding for this kind of money. For this, and not have something for another identified need, a need that was identified in our Vision 2020 Master Parks Plan, which was compiled in 2012. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. So speaking of bonds, when we talk about bonds, that doesn't necessarily have to be a ballot measure. It can, when I'm talking about bonds, the first way I'm talking about it is if we can go make the case to the county, this is why we would like to consider an extension, then that's bondable.
And that's where I am. I'm not
Yes.
talking about going to the voters.
Right. So just to be clear, that's the path forward that I'm looking at. Commissioner Eastman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with I think James Engel listed my plan out. I felt like just say ditto to, as you pointed out, the the circling back around to it, I will point out that here's where I'm looking at this. You got, you would have it seems like within the current budget or within a stretch budget, you would be able to have a competition pool with a community element into it. It looks like there's enough space for that. You'd be able to do the multi-purpose fields. It looks like you're building that to the south of the current, the community pool would be built to the south of MLK. To the north there, you would then tear down the existing pool, which would then leave, you would have to run utilities, different things out there to make it prepared for a senior center or community center or a center, a large-scale center at that point. Until that gets built, that can easily be used as sort of overflow parking or for usable field space, like what you talked about, Commissioner Engel, where it would be nice if we had more of that within our city.
Underground parking, isn't it?
We can get a little Tesla loop that goes from here to downtown, yeah, we can do all of it. I think that fits within a budget. I mean, within a stretch budget, we probably have to move some wild spaces, public places money around, but that seems to me like a realistic outcome that gets everyone a little bit of what they're looking for. Is that, how does that fit into, I guess I'm looking at staff here after having heard everyone's feedback from things, but.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we will, we'll take the sort of final list and we'll develop the budget. We'll refine the site number, the site work numbers, and so we can provide that information. But I think that, what I'm hearing is definitely within striking distance in terms of, of a potential budget, rather than I think the full-blown scenario one that we talked about before.
I'm very satisfied. That's great.
Commissioner Williams.
This is assuming with X number of paved parking spaces south of
Yes,
the
yes.
stadium shared with the school board, but a large parking lot where it's currently gravel and the fire facility of some
Yes,
sort.
yeah, and I think as you point out and as Commissioner Book points out, we're already assuming parking is going to be part of it, and we'll be judicious in terms of paved, and if there's an ability to do unpaved, we will make sure that is used as well.
Oh, I guess I do want to jump in, because I think it's important whenever we talk about capital project, particularly recreation, that I get some feeling from our park staff about operational costs ongoing with this, because you guys, we've cut back on them significantly, and so I have a feeling, because we're basically just replacing things mostly here, but I think for all these, it's worth asking, and so I'd like to hear from Roxy.
So operational wise, there's always O&M costs, right? So in the infrastructure and leveling out the fields and maintaining the fields, there's that operational cost to make sure we have the proper staffing and maintenance staff to maintain that. In regards to the aquatic center, out of the whole design, that is probably the lowest O&M cost, because we currently are fully staffed with lifeguards. So replacing one for the other is just moving that staff that's in there over. So that is, out of that whole complex, that's the one facility we have that is fully staffed. So it would be the lowest O&M cost to do that. Where the increase goes is just the chlorine cost. You're looking at an increase in chlorine rate and acid rate, just to keep the pools at a safe level to be able to maintain them. And then obviously the initial infrastructure and whatever maintenance costs that come with that. So, but it is the lower side of an O&M cost.
Perfect. And then I did want to ask about the GFR down here to the south. Have we looked at, we have such a constrained site here. Have we looked at any other alternative locations where that could go? I know we spoke with VFW. There was a time we were talking to VFW about what was happening up there. It is, it's a significant chunk of this. Have we looked at any?
The training center.
Commissioner, are you talking about the station, or are you talking about?
Fire Station 3, yeah, the new build on Fire Station 3.
As far as looking at other locations?
Other locations, yeah.
So, we had a pretty lengthy discussion with UF about it.
Okay.
We were looking at some of their property north of the East Campus.
Right.
They weren't interested in having that discussion with us until they had a permanent president.
Gotcha.
At this point, we have now made significant professional services investments into that site, Not all of that would be relocatable to another site, but I mean, we could reopen those discussions with UF, but I mean, that's going to significantly delay the project. Fire Station 3 is one of our least desirable stations to work out of.
Yeah.
So we do need to move on that as quickly as possible.
And for sure, I've done a ride along with Fire Station 3. It's got a lot of, I mean, they're trying to do a lot with a little bit over there, so that makes sense. I just, it would open up a whole lot here if we were able to do that, but I understand that if we're already pretty far along on the work on that. All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right, so Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hadn't discussed what my priorities are, and they'll mirror some of your own. But then I do have somewhat of a different perspective that I take when I'm looking at things like this, particularly on this site and given how it has been used over the years. So I do prioritize the infrastructure because we understand that that's just the foundation. The comp pool and the aquatic center are clearly an important part of this that have to be prioritized, and they have to go together because that is what is currently it's driving what happens economically over in that area. I have friends that come from different places, some friends that come from Tallahassee, some friends that come from Tampa to bring their sons to compete at that pool. But then I shift to the need to really want to make sure that our young people have safe places to go for recreation in a time frame that has as little downtime as possible, because we know what happens when young folk don't have safe places to go. And so I would probably need to defer to staff to ask a question. I have an idea, but I probably want to defer to staff here to ask the question about usage, particularly for those fields. I know a lot of youth use those fields out there, because that's kind of how I'm thinking. I'm looking at who's using the spaces, who's going to have the most downtime here. And I certainly don't want to put young folks who need safe places to go and things to do out of the opportunity to use these spaces in the ways that they have or the ways that they could.
So the question, just so I'm clear on the question, and I get to give you the right answer, it's when the field's being renovated or site work's being done, where are we gonna?
No.
Okay.
What I'm asking you is to tell me about the usage of the spaces in terms of young people. Are we seeing more young people using your fields? Are you seeing more young people? You tell me where your usage is.
Yeah, so the use is all over for the youth in that location, 100%. So our pools, the community pool is a big aspect for us to include the community pool because it is used by the community.
For sure.
And so we have, the gymnasium is highly utilized by the youth. We have open gym times that run a good portion of the day, and when we close the gym, we make sure that there's access for a community pool, for pool use, so that they have something to do in that area. The fields get used by the youth right after school, throughout the evening, especially during our Pop Warner football season. It is infiltrated at that time. It is highly used at that time. And then our gym and our fields get used by our cheerleading groups, often, year-round, for that matter. We have national champion cheerleading teams that participate in our programs. So it is highly utilized at all times of the day. Where it does get slower is the summertime. There's a lot of heat out, so it's not, they're not out there as often during the daytime, but they do use the gymnasium and the pools.
Okay, thank you, Roxy. So I think what I've heard around the table is that in terms of the least expensive, the multi-purpose fields are probably the easiest thing to do. And so that's where I would land there. And it also, we're getting heavy usage from young folk, Pop Warner and otherwise, and soccer folks will be able to come and use it and all that kind of stuff. So, infrastructure, comp pool, aquatic center, multi-purpose fields is where I land. And then however we get to the MLK Center and the inclusion of a space for seniors. I'm up for future discussions.
All right, so, you good?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. So from the, what I'm hearing is that we all agree remediation and site work have to happen. Competition pool rises up, and with that, the aquatic center. And because it just kind of is a throw-in with the site work, for a little bit more, the multipurpose fields. And then that runs us out of the existing available dollars. And then below that, what we go talk to the community and talk to the county about, because we need an extension to be able to bond, or we find other sources, other ways to approach this, the next level becomes senior center and/or changes to the MLK Center. And follow that with courts and community pool and playground. Does that capture what folks are saying? And,
I think it does. Now, are you looking at waiting until December to go to the county, or waiting for staff to come back, or exactly what?
So, Matt, what day do we have?
It's December 2nd, I believe.
If it is in fact December 2nd, given that a full week of November doesn't exist,
Mr. Mayor, while she's signing that, just in listening to what you just iterated there, a community pool would be higher up on my list.
okay, so where would you put it?
Well, I mean, based on the list that you just gave, I think it was like the second to the last.
Okay.
It would just be higher up. I can just say higher. It's depending obviously on what we have to work with. But for me, that community pool space is really, really important.
Gotcha. So basically, we've got a tier 1 that we can pay for now, and a tier 2.
Right.
And where we move things around within those two tiers is not as relevant as getting the tiers. The things we have money in the bank for and things we don't have money in the bank for that we need to go sell.
Apologize, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say the only adjustment I'd throw on that myself would be if it makes sense to do the community pool while you're looking at the competition pool, just for the fact of like the type of work you're doing and that stuff, if there's any.
If there's shared pump space.
Yeah. So whatever you can do, so you're not just duplicating work if you've got to do that type of thing there.
It's only
There's a lot of-
$3.2 million right now.
Way cheaper than the field.
Not without the lights.
It's normally on the second, but I'm not, I mean, on the Tuesday, but I'm not seeing it.
Does anybody know when
I
our?
think I have it.
I believe it's the 10th.
What is it?
I think it's the 10th.
I think it's gonna be hard to schedule earlier than that.
Okay, well, just so we
Yes,
want
that's
that on
the
the
10th.
agenda,
Yes.
because I think the county commission is very interested in seeing that senior center built.
December 10th.
December 10th.
December 10th.
All right,
Okay.
Make
But
sure
we'll
I
make
got
sure
it.
you get that
on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, so, Commissioner Chestnut, since it's your motion, can we take number 1 out and replace it with the tiering structure that we just did?
Yes.
And who was the seconder on that?
I believe I was.
You good with that? Okay.
Right, and so you're going to put the first and second tier, and are you going to include, and what I would like to include there is that the second tier will be discussed with the county commission at the December 10th joint meeting.
Yeah, and we'll discuss the entire thing, but specifically
Senior center,
the senior center
Okay.
on that agenda.
that works for me.
And the rest of the motion is okay as we have it there, okay, all right. Commissioners?
Well, I was just gonna try to help get
Yeah,
that
let's
through.
put it up on the screen.
Because what I had, and I sent Kristen, I didn't have it in a 2-tier structure. What I had was more specific to that begin solicitation, architectural and engineering design services for remediation, site work, a new competition pool with a community pool component, multi-purpose fields, and site preparations for a future senior/community center. I don't have this second tier type things in there. This was just what was going to be in a request for proposal that would be going out for engineering services at this point.
Yeah, I'm totally thrown off now. Sorry.
No, it's fine. How did you want the motion to be phrased? You said you wanted there to be a tier 1 and tier 2, but the structure of what they're requesting is that we approve preparation for a solicitation for final design remediation, permitting and construction services for a build-out that would include all of those things. And so we do have to include the things that we want for that originally.
Right.
And then our internal prioritization is important as well, but that's not, like, we have to tell them something to put into their solicitation. Is that?
Not specifically, no.
Okay.
I think we can, I think the tiered list gives us enough information. We don't necessarily need you to list out every single thing for the solicitation. It's just direction that we could start the solicitation process. And we'll keep it general so as we continue to have discussions about future phases, that we'll have that flexibility. But I think the consensus on what are the most important things to start right away, I think is very, very helpful.
All right, so then,
Yeah, no, you're kind of looking at.
I'm reading at that now.
I mean, it's really, it's direct staff for 3 and 4 that's on the sheet, and then 5 is prioritizing, and then it's the tiers. I mean, that's what I think.
Right.
And I'm actually comfortable with that also. I think it's good. Who knows when we'll get to tier 2, but we've got to get something out of the ground. It's time to make some progress. We've talked about it enough. And I think probably by next year at this time, our first piece we've seen.
Right, and this gives us the opportunity to tell the community,
And
look, we're
that
serious
generates
about this.
trust and integrity between us and the community, that we've started, we're doing it, they're seeing work, they're seeing the fire safety complex change, which they'll think that's all one piece, even though it's separate. And I think that's a really good way to pursue it, if you
Yeah.
agree.
And I think that, yeah, of course, we all know the community will not be excited to see site work. It will not excite them at all.
Or stormwater.
Or stormwater.
Unless they're planners or engineers.
Unless so, unless so.
47 people in the community, I don't think that's great.
Our top priorities are very unexciting.
They're very
But they have to
unexciting.
do that for us to move forward.
But,
this is your motion, not mine.
right. And what I want to be sure we get in this motion is the county commission and the senior center, December 10th.
Okay, so number
Yeah, there we
5.
go, there we go.
Where you?
Direct staff to begin solicitation for architectural and engineering design services for remediation site work, a new competition pool with the community, and preparation for a future senior community center.
Okay, so add a number 5 that directs us to put discussion of tiers 1 and 2, and specifically the senior center, on the December 10th joint commission meetings.
Yeah, fine.
Commissioner Chestnut, I did see that we've got that aquatic, basically the locker rooms have got to be up there.
They're not up there?
It's
the
not-
aquatic center?
The aquatic center is not in there, and it's kind of all a piece of whatever we.
All right, so they need to go up
Competition pool
and,
and facilities and aquatic center. Competition pool and aquatic center.
right, and I think it's a senior citizen center, not a senior community center.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
and then we're still adding 5, or is 5?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am.
So, when we started to talk about our economic development framework, and I had conversations with the county manager about the things that we had started to think about in terms of GCRA extension, these conversations go back now for months. But we had some very deliberate conversations, the county manager and I, about the bonding of the revenue in order to fund projects. And I don't want you all caught by surprise, but I believe that the interpretation is that because they use general fund revenue, and we do as well, for our GCRA funding, that a voter approval is necessary. So I know the attorney has been a part of these conversations, and so it may not be as easy as it appears to be, that we don't have to utilize that mode. It could be a revenue bond where you pledge other revenues, not general fund revenues. And so I've had those discussions with the county manager, and they are not as clear on that path forward of bonding as we may be.
Okay, so that's for information.
And
for
it's
us
ad
for
valorem,
that
it's ad
discussion.
valorem, Andrew, it's ad valorem.
So that's background for all of us for that discussion, not for the motion, correct?
It is, that's just background information, I just want to make sure I've had those conversations.
Okay, does anybody else need to do input on, and is everybody comfortable, the maker and the seconder are comfortable with the motion? That's important. Okay. All right. Any other input on this? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. That's a big deal. All right.
We got a lot done.
Boy, so I will tell you, I did not particularly enjoy that, but we got a lot done. So. All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to 2025-622 City Commission meeting calendar and recess dates. And the calendar should be
Any questions regarding that, or is there any public comment on that?
We have no public comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
You have to make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Commissioner
The
Burns.
calendar.
So we'll do a recess the middle week-ish of August. If we have city elections that all push runoffs to November, will we be adding or moving the fall week break, week recess?
I think it'd be adding, in the past, it's been an addition in the past if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. I'll see you in the field.
See you tonight.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we're on to 2025-771, discuss city manager recruitment with the recommendation the General Policy Committee discuss city manager recruitment considerations.
I don't see Laura here.
Yeah, Ms. Gretz is not here. Is it okay if we put this on the next general policy?
Sure.
We'll move that to the next week. I'm about.
Yeah.
I would like a map that we can push the little general managers around on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but
Sure.
the GRU board had their meeting last night, and they approved the ITSLA as well as the stormwater and solid waste collection fees being included on their bill, so there was no change, so everything.
Thank you. Okay, anything else about important?
Member comment?
I don't want to jump. So long as the press is still here, like, I do want to just take a step back and say, like, I don't think there's ever been a project in our city that I can think of where you have the school board using city-county money through the CRA, working with the city where we are leading on it. I mean, this is, like, what we just approved was incredibly collaborative, very intergovernmental. I mean, every single local government has a very major piece of this, and I think we should, we should just acknowledge that, because I think it's a big deal. It's been a long kind of slog here, but this was the major vote of making all of those groups come together and moving forward on it, and I just think we should all just acknowledge it.
We should
give ourselves a
applaud
pat on the back.
ourselves.
We should applaud.
Yeah.
Applaud for all of our partners as well who have been working with us on it.
Right, thank you, Commissioner.
I agree, I just want to say that this is major. We have been talking about this and talking about it for months. Years. And finally, we are moving forward. Oh, there's Laura.
All right. All right, we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.